to concerns the agency tried to halt a review by the Government Accountability Office and limited the scope of the review.
We feel that there hasn't been enough transparency on the part of this federally chartered organization, and that's pretty important because most nonprofits aren't federally chartered. Very few are.
The American people rely on the Red Cross to respond when tragedy strikes and receives federal tax dollars for some of its disaster responses. Grassi says Congress has a responsibility to make sure the Red Cross answers questions asked on the public's behalf and is operating up to the standards required of it during disasters.
The bottom line is the Red Cross needs to share their books with the federal government when they're investigated. And we want to make sure that the Government Accountability Office has access to the records so the Red Cross can't impede government review.
Grassi says the Red Cross has shown an unwillingness to answer questions in the past, and the legislation strengthens transparency to make the agency more accountable to the public. An author from Central Iowa is releasing a new book that focuses on the successes and stumbles of some of the region's most well-known figures. Aaron Putzi of Ankeny says his nonfiction book, You're Destined for Greatness, is a compilation of lessons learned by those who have excelled in business, sports, academia, finance, retail, and elected office.
It's a book of inspiration and empowerment, stories that have been shared with me over the last few years by 27 notable and influential people, many with Midwest and Iowa roots.
Now, that list includes former University of Iowa football star Chuck Long and his coach Hayden Fry, Ambassador and former Governor Terry Branstad, and Randy Ideker, the chairman and CEO of Hy-Vee. Putzi says his book zeroes in on how our attitudes and the choices we make impact everything we attempt and achieve.
We can all use a little bit more inspiration and aspiration in how we go about living our lives, especially during a time where there just seems to be a constant stream of negative news and negative information. We can all use our battery charge now and then.
Putzi says books sold through his website, PutziInc.com, will benefit the youth organization Junior Achievement, and that is PUTZEINK.com. That's a look at local news for the newsroom. I'm Bob Fisher.
Here's the AM 1400 KVFD weatherology forecast. Partly cloudy skies this afternoon with daytime highs approaching 70. Winds out of the northwest 8 to 15 miles per hour. Scattered thunderstorms likely. Tonight, lows dip down to about 58. Overcast skies. Cloudy skies. Tomorrow, scattered thunderstorms likely. Highs level off around 77. From the Weatherology Weather Center, I'm meteorologist Jennifer Wojcicki. Currently, it's 65.
Ribbon, Pelham Waters, your water pro since 1949.
Do you have questions about your water? What is a whole home filter? Is my softener working or not? Can I get rid of that red stain around the sink? I'm Brian with Blue Ribbon Pelham Waters. We're here to fix problem water. We'll work with you to find the right solution for you. We've been serving the Fort Dodge area since 1949. Let us serve your water treatment needs. Sales, service, rentals. Blue Ribbon Pelham Waters, your complete water store.
If you don't listen to him, you suck.
He's sneaky, but he's right.
Michael Devine at AM 1400 KVFD.
Well, good news. You don't suck today. You're listening to this program. Congratulations. AM 1400 KVFD, the voice for Dodge. Maybe the best thing to have to do all day. I don't know. This is the time of week. Of course, we speak with someone from the Growth Alliance. And with us today is Jill Nelson. Hi, Jill.
Good afternoon.
And we have, well, not a regular guest, but a young man who's been on the air with us before, Keaton Dornth. How are you, Keaton?
I'm doing well. How are you?
All right. I'm outstanding as always. Of course, I'm usually been drinking before noon, so there you go.
It's 2:10.
No, yes, 2:10. No, I gave up that drinking a long time ago, man. It turned me into a carrot. But anyway, Keaton, a little bit about your background, please.
Yeah, so just a kind of reminder to everyone out there listening. So I am interning with the Growth Alliance. This will be my second year back here. So last year I was an Economic Development Learning Associate, and this year kind of stepping in the same role. This year I'll be leading the Internship Plus program, which is the program that the Growth Alliance offers to its members and kind of development in terms of professional development for those interns of companies kind of in the area and making sure that they're getting acclimated to the resource that we have here in the area and just to kind of get them some experience outside of just working that job that they regularly work in throughout the summer with the internship. And then just more a little bit about me. I graduated from senior high in 2017 and now I'm at the University of Kansas. So I'm studying marketing and analytics. So pretty exciting. Still got some time ahead of me. I'm excited for the summer to take on kind of this role.
Could you start over and say that a little faster? I don't think I got that.
I do. I've always been told I speak fast, so when I'm starting to think, it's just kind of a million miles an hour. And I'm apologizing now.
No, that's all right. Well, what is an economic development specialist intern?
Yeah, so a little bit about my role specifically. I know last year I kind of focused more on the marketing aspect of things and kind of social media, brand development, that kind of stuff. This year I'm doing a little bit more of stepping into some meetings, learning a little bit more about kind of what's going on rather than just knowing that a meeting's happening, So I'm stepping into that role, and I just got out of a meeting with Workforce Development Committee, so that was exciting to see kind of what's going on there and that side of things. And then also kind of getting involved in projects outside of just the Growth Alliance. So it's kind of just being that holistic approach and making sure I kind of know a little bit about a bunch of different areas. So I sometimes step in with Jill and kind of visit those members that we have and making sure that their needs are met. So it's kind of just a wide scope intern where you get exposed to a lot of different topics.
Let's talk about branding for a business just a second.
Yeah.
What do you mean by branding?
So when I talk about branding, it's about kind of consistency in the way that we, or not we, but everyone kind of brands themselves. So branding is just having that idea of consistency and a message that's getting across to your customers, whether those be residents of the area or just on the outside, just kind of having that consistent focus.
A message of consistency?
Yeah, that's what I would consider branding to be.
Okay.
So when we're doing things with the Growth Alliance, it's kind of getting our message across that we are here to kind of help out our members, here to make sure that everything's kind of consistent. So we're not looking at anything wonky in terms of the phrasing that we use or anything like that. So it's just kind of making sure everything looks clean cut and professional. So
what was wrong with Iowa State or University of Iowa, Keaton?
Yeah, so there wasn't anything wrong with him. I just didn't see myself kind of as a Hawkeye or a Cyclone. I figured I'd go for another bird, and I became a Jayhawk. So just kind of wanted to get out and see things from a different perspective and have that opportunity to explore. And you only get it to pick your college once, or I guess twice if you go to grad school. But
that's right.
The opportunity is only there once for undergrad. So I picked KU, and I don't regret the decision at all.
Well, I'll tell you, if Nevin Mulholland's out there listening somewhere, he'd tell you did the right thing. He'd tell you did the right thing. You were going to say something, Jill, but I interrupted you. What were you going to say? Or did you forget? That's a sign of age, Jill. You're too young for.
Oh gosh, now I can't say that. I
got to think way back there 3 minutes ago. I know the feeling.
I was going to comment on Keaton's title of Economic Development Learning Associate. I think that Kelly Halstead, she's the one that I think kind of came up with that title, and that's what the title of the position is, because I don't think that the field of economic development is one that is really common, that people really go into frequently. And there's a lot of people that don't even realize what it is. And so a lot of what
That's
our
right.
interns do is they spend a lot of time learning about what is our economy made of, and how does what does it take to grow your economy. And so our interns, they sit in on a variety of meetings and kind of get their hands in a couple of different projects so they can see what our organization is all about. And with the hope that then, they go back to college or tell their friends, go home and tell their family everything that's happening, what they're involved in. And we can continue to spread the word about what's going on.
What does it take to grow the economy?
Collaboration.
Of course it does.
Dennis, I hope you're listening right now.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah.
Mr. Collaboration himself. That's right.
Yeah, but I think that Keaton would definitely say that is something that we really work hard to show in our office. The work that we're doing is there's so many people brought to the table for decisions and for meetings.
Well, this mall thing that we have going on here in Fort Dodge is a perfect example. There's so many different people involved, and of course we came close to getting something done last year. Just to have the people from Tennessee walk away at the very last minute was very disappointing. And now we're doing trying to do something with the old Sears building, and social media has been ablaze with the wrong information. So I'll have Matt Bemrick in here this afternoon at 4:00 to give another one of his seminars on TIF. And
well, good. I'm glad that Mayor Bemrick will be in here, because I definitely am not the one to comment on all of that, and I know that he's very much involved.
Yeah, well, Dennis is too. Denny
Yeah,
Ploutz
yes.
and David Fearix. I mean, they're all good. And I had Menke in here yesterday. I don't know if TIF bores him or what, but he doesn't. He understands it. He just doesn't like to talk about it. So anyway, this is the time of week that we have someone from the Growth Alliance with us, and we have Jill Nelson and Keaton Dorneth. And Now, this year you're doing what, Keaton?
Yeah, so I'm looking a little bit about. So I'm leading the internship plus program, which I kind of touched on at the beginning of our conversation. It's the program that we offer to our members just to kind of get those interns that they have for the summer, those people who are working the co-ops, that opportunity to kind of learn a little bit more about the culture of Fort Dodge, kind of outside of that regular job that they're working over the summer. Just kind of getting them involved more so in the community here, and they kind of just get the opportunity to hear from community leaders and understand kind of a little bit more of that approach of everyone's hand in the pot to make sure that everything's kind of mixed up together and have that collaboration that Jill touched on. So we get to hear from them, and we kind of just learn a variety of different topics. So we talk about one of my favorite things that I remember doing last year was an etiquette dinner. So we went out to
etiquette dinner.
Yeah.
Right.
So we went out to Willow Ridge, and we had brought in someone, and she had taught us a little bit about how to eat with manners. You know, people are always kind of sloppy at the table sometimes, and
Really?
especially
I can never wear white shirts to anything.
Yeah, so we're just trying to have that kind of message that gets across to professionalism outside of the workplace. So if you're going out to eat with a client or even just a fellow coworker, how to have a little bit more of a touch of cleanliness to yourself.
Which fork to use, you know?
Yeah, exactly.
Keep your elbows off the table and
yeah. So that was an opportunity. That was one
don't
of my
get drunk before.
Just to have that opportunity before kind of stepping out into the real workplace after college, just to learn a little bit about things. So it talks a little bit about the ins and outs of business success as well. So that's focusing on kind of how to succeed in the workplace and then how to succeed out in the community. So we touch a little bit base on that. And then it features a variety of different individuals from all sorts of different industries, all sorts of different colleges and majors as well. Kind of just depends on what your internship is focusing on. I remember last year we had an individual who is from Atlanta, went to school in North Carolina, and came and worked here in Fort Dodge as an intern. So that was an opportunity. Yeah. So we have people from really all over the place. We get a lot of applicants from kind of the Iowa State region, University of Wisconsin, university system, and then as well as some from Minnesota. So we have a few from kind of mainly in the Midwest, but one of my favorite people that we kind of had the opportunity to work with last year was from, like I said, that North Carolina, Atlanta area. So that's not an area, but Atlanta transplant to North Carolina.
Sure. Yeah.
So, and then just a little bit more about that is any companies that are kind of out there that are interested, any organizations that are interested in getting their intern out there. The applications for that are due May 30th. You can find a little bit more information on our website and look at some more key dates. I know we're going to try and get it kicked off on June 5th. It's like our first concrete date. And then most after that, it's just kind of getting involved with those lunch and learns and getting that intern continuously involved in the process.
You know, we do branding regularly at this radio station. Sunny 99.7,
yeah.
Classic rock 92.1, classic country 540, that sort of thing. That's all branding.
Yeah.
You know, you know in a minute what sort of music that we're playing. I never knew what Beach 95 was supposed to be. I know it was a reference. That was KTLB, and Beach was supposed to be Twin Lakes.
The Twin Lakes
Yeah,
Beach.
the Twin Lakes beaches. But Iowa's really not known as a beach area, even if we do have Twin Lakes.
Yeah.
Stuck between two rivers. Yeah. Stuck between two rivers.
I don't know if that's where we want to go, but okay.
So with the Internship Plus program, you know, if there are businesses out there that like Keaton said, they do have an intern. I think the 9 times out of 10.
Who has an intern? I'm sorry.
If there are businesses out there that do
with an
have
intern.
an intern, I think that 9 times out of 10, those businesses, they take care of that intern from 8 to 5. And then maybe that intern goes home for lunch, or maybe after work, they just go right home. They are back to their apartment, wherever they're living. Maybe they don't know anybody in town. And so maybe they just go work to home. Well, this Internship Plus program that Keaton's been talking about gives them the opportunity to meet people. It gives them the opportunity to get out in the community, because I know that these employers and these businesses would love it if that intern of theirs stayed in the area, stayed with their business. And that's the goal of all of this, is to keep those interns in Fort Dodge, in the area, after they graduate.
I was going to ask you of what benefit is an intern to a business. I mean, if they're just there for the summer, we do it here just kind of as a community relations sort of thing, but we rarely retain the interns. I don't even know if we do the interns anymore, as a matter of fact.
Okay.
But Of what benefit to business is an intern?
Well, I think that and
Yeah.
you can share your experience, but I think oftentimes there may be a special project that an intern works on.
Sure.
I think internships are also used for grooming potential employees and getting individuals in the door that they think would be a good fit for another permanent position.
Yeah.
You know,
Oh,
hoping
yeah.
to kind of test them
Sure.
out. I think people use interns for that. And then I know that it's just another opportunity to get workforce in your door. If you're already understaffed and you know that there's college kids that are available from June until August.
Don't have to pay them. Hey, now we're talking.
Well, I think that there are some interns out there that are getting a pretty good summer wage. So,
Are they?
Yeah.
Well, okay. Did you
Yep.
get a pretty good summer wage there, Keaton?
We'll talk about that later, maybe.
So no.
So
He says yes, and he loves the working environment.
yeah, for sure, definitely an amazing opportunity. One thing that I really think is a benefit to companies is having the opportunity to have someone kind of come into your workplace, your organization from that June to August. That's a fresh face in your door. They can definitely walk through the process and see anything that needs improvements. I know when I first joined the Growth Alliance last summer, I kind of looked at some things and I kind of scratched my head a little bit and said, well, what if we did it this way? And I think it's important to have that relationship with your employer as an intern and to have that relationship with your employee as an organization and have that two-way street to really figure out how you as an organization can grow and how to really let that intern grow. So when we look at those kind of progress, the type of projects and the type of processes that maybe your organization does, it's important to just have that fresh take that really can just kind of say, why is it this way? And kind of start with square one. So it kind of comes back to the fundamental root. So
Do we ever have interns who learn a business model in college, then seek to tell the employer who's been in business 20 years that he's been doing it all wrong?
Well, I'm sure.
I'm sure that happens more often than you think, especially with
It does happen.
the way that higher education and everything's kind of going that way in terms of learning the new business processes. It's kind of always being that continuous learning process. And it's nice to maybe, if you're in an organization, that's a resource that you can use to kind of develop your own organization and lead just with the way of change of having a young person, a college student in the workplace.
You know, it's good to have a college student in the workplace, because they're at that time in life where they are intellectually curious. That's a great benefit. And it is a good way for a business to keep up on their own business. Sometimes, a lot of times business gets caught up in the day-to-day operation and miss innovation that's happening in their own field. So it's good to have young people. Yes. Educated young people. Anyway, Keaton Dornath has been our guest, and Jill Nelson. Do we have anything else?
Segue with our into our professional development. So we were kind of talking about that from the intern perspective and kind of adding value and some professional development opportunities to internships in the area. We also have one for our current members that's coming up Thursday, June 6th. We have a recurring program series called Excellence in the Workplace, and it is sponsored by Manpower. And the topic of this one on Thursday, June 6th, is how to develop your current staff through succession planning specifically. And so during the program, we're going to talk about decision-making styles, how to advance people, and how to identify if someone is ready for an advancement or a promotion in your current position, and then just leveraging the different strengths of your employees. So that, again, is Thursday, June 6th. We ask that you do pre-register for that because there's like a little bit of pre-work that you have to do, and then we're going to go through the results during the workshop. But again, sponsored by Manpower in partnership with the Growth Alliance. And it's always a really great program, great series for us. You can contact our office to get registered.
Okay. What year of school are you in, Keaton?
Yeah, so I'll be a junior here in the fall. So one of my favorite opportunities that I like to touch base on is how through Iowa Central, I had the opportunity to get a bunch of dual credits while I was in high school, absolutely free. So I'm kind of a
year ahead. Free credits?
Free credits through Iowa Central, yeah. So that's definitely a plug in high school.
What if you were in high school, you get the free credits?
Yep. So if you're in high school, you get to take some. I'm not sure if the process is still the same. I know that they have dual credit classes that you can take. I'm just not sure if I don't think there's. In fact, there was just a student the other day who got his associate's degree at the same time he got his high school.
Oh yeah,
I read about that too.
So that was kind of cool. but I had the opportunity to kind of take a full year and make sure that everything planned out. And even if you're looking to transfer to a four-year university after the fact, you can always play around and see how that's going to lay out. So I'm going to get 2 degrees at the end of my 4 years, and I have room to play with. So it's kind of nice to not be overloaded.
Yeah, high school kids were in my classes when I was at Iowa Central years and years ago, and it was, they got their electives out of the way, maybe some English classes if they were good at English and those sorts of things. It was a smart thing for them to do.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, Keaton Dorneth and Jill Nelson, thank you very much for being here.
Thank you
for having us.
This is AM 1400 KVFD, the voice of Fort Dodge.
Considerations with planting backed up. Hello, everyone. I'm Mark Dorenkamp with Managing for Profit on Brownfield. Wet, cool weather has slowed field work going back to last fall and has led to extended planting delays in many key growing areas of the Corn Belt. With insurance dates quickly approaching, producers are having to consider some difficult choices, from changing maturities to deciding to take prevented planting. A lot goes into those decisions, and we'll discuss that with a farm management analyst after this.
GTG, BRB, OMW, be there in a few. You may think that these kinds of texts are fine because of their length, and you can easily send them at a stoplight. But no, answering one text can take your attention away from the road for 5 seconds. And traveling at 55 miles an hour, that's enough time to travel the length of a football field. Make good decisions, don't text and drive.
Visit StopTextStopWrecks.org, a message brought to you by the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration, Project Yellow Light, Noise, and the Ad Council.
Hi, it's Olivia Munn with my shelter pets, Frankie and Chance. Say hi, guys. When I adopted them, I discovered that they both have incredible personalities. Chance's sole purpose in life is to love and to be loved. Frankie is a little bit of a scoundrel and always entertaining. They're a little bit of a lot of things, but they're all pure love. Adopt pure love at theshelterpetproject.org. Brought to you by the Ad Council, the Humane Society of the United States, and Maddie's Fund.
Kent Tesey, a farm management analyst in south central Minnesota, says late planting dates for corn are closing fast across the Midwest.
Once you hit that final planting date, you can still plant the crop you intended. In other words, if you intended to plant corn after that final planting date, you could still plant corn. You do lose 1% of your guarantee for each day after the final planting date. So, for example, if your final planting date's May 31st and you planted the corn on June 10th, you would have 90% of your original guarantee. Now, if you wait till there's a 25-day late period, and after that, then your insurance coverage goes down to the same as prevented planting. Now, for soybeans, for Minnesota, Nebraska, the Dakotas, it's June 10th for a final planting date. For all of Iowa and southern third of Wisconsin, June 15th, and again, a little later in those eastern states, June 20th.
He tells Brownfield farmers could also switch to an alternate crop or file a prevented planting claim.
The prevented planting coverage for corn is 55% of your original maximum insurance guarantee. So if you had an insurance guarantee of $600 an acre, for example, your coverage then for preventive planting or your payment would be $330 an acre. And then soybeans is the same way after June 10th in most of Minnesota. So basically it comes down to then you got to kind of compare the economics of just taking the preventive planted payment to cover your land costs and overhead costs. You'll have some costs to keep a cover crop out there and control the weeds versus planting a crop late and look at what your insurance coverage is and what kind of protection you have.
His first piece of advice is to sit down with your crop insurance agent.
Find out what your coverage, what your guarantees are. If you've picked up new rented land, you got to find out for sure, what, how that affects any or past yields on there, what kind of coverage you got, and also as far as any future APH yields and stuff. So there's a lot of variables in there.
That's Kent Tesey with Minstar Bank in Lake Crystal, Minnesota. I'm Mark Dorenkamp with Managing for Profit on Brownfield.
As a farmer, you know better than anyone how vital nitrogen is to your crops. At Verdesian Life Sciences, we know that too. Our new Charge G nitrogen efficiency technology, built on more than 500 trials on 46 million acres, features next-generation polymer technology that protects your crops against 3 common forms of in-loss. Third parties show an expected 4-to-1 return investment when using New Charge G. New Charge G also offers a wider treatment window versus competitive products, perfect for spring application. So get more nitrogen when your plant needs it and increase your profitability at the same time. Contact your local ag retailer and learn more about how New Charge G can guard against in-loss while also protecting your soil health and water quality. And be sure to ask about the Verdesian Performance Guarantee. Use New Charge G this coming season, and if you don't get a return on your investment, we will cover any shortfall. That's our promise to you.
Your news, your town, your station. KVFD News when it breaks.
With a look at local news from the newsroom, I'm Bob Fisher reporting. Attorney General Tom Miller of Democrats says the agreement he's made with Republican Governor Kim Reynolds means it's pretty unlikely that he'll sign the state of Iowa onto multi-state lawsuits challenging Trump administration policies. Governor Reynolds yesterday used her item veto authority to nix a policy that would have forced Miller to get permission from her, the state's Republican-led executive council, or from the legislature's Republican majority to join lawsuits filed in courts outside of Iowa. However, Miller has struck what he calls a good faith agreement that's not set in Iowa law, and has promised to seek the governor's consent before joining any multi-state lawsuits over the next 20 months.
My main concern about this was over the institution of the Office of Attorney General and the future of the office and my successors.
Miller also got some backup from current attorneys general, including from Republicans in Idaho and Nebraska, who urged Governor Reynolds to reject the proposal from GOP lawmakers. One of the Republican legislators who sought to put restraints on Miller in state law says he's pleased the governor pursued this compromise. And if Miller intends to challenge Trump administration policies in the future, he'll be doing so under his own name rather than on behalf of the state of Iowa. 5 Eastern Iowa men have been charged with sex trafficking, often in the Johnson County area. OK Henderson with more.
29-year-old Isaiah Patterson is accused of using advertising to sell sex with a minor girl. 25-year-old Arian West is accused of forcing 2 minors to have sex for money. 39-year-old Albert Kelly Price is charged with paying 3 minors to have sex in hotels and other locations. 52-year-old Kendall Stebb has been charged with a variety of sex trafficking, drug, and firearm offenses. And 40-year-old Tommy Tate Collins is charged with sex trafficking a minor and giving the victim marijuana and cocaine. Radio Iowa, I'm OK Henderson.
As the American Red Cross responds to another round of deadly tornadoes overnight, Iowa Senator Chuck Grassley is introducing legislation that aims to make sure that the relief agency is spending its funds appropriately. Grassley chairs the Senate Finance Committee and says his bill would give a congressional watchdog group more complete access to Red Cross records for oversight.
It's a tax-exempt organization. My committee has responsibility over making sure tax exemption is used properly.
He says the bipartisan American Red Cross Transparency Act of 2019 responds to concerns the agency tried to halt a review by the Government Accountability Office and limited the scope of the review.
We feel that there hasn't been enough transparency on the part of this federally chartered organization, and that's pretty important because most nonprofits aren't federally chartered. Very few are.
The American people rely on the Red Cross to respond when tragedy strikes and receives federal tax dollars for some of its disaster responses. Grassley says Congress has a responsibility to make sure the Red Cross answers questions asked on the public's behalf and is operating up to the standards required of it during disasters.
The bottom line is the Red Cross needs to share their books with the federal government when they're investigated. And we want to make sure that the Government Accountability Office has access to the records so the Red Cross can't impede government review.
Grassley says the Red Cross has shown an unwillingness to answer questions in the past, and the legislation strengthens transparency to make the agency more accountable to the public. An author from Central Iowa is releasing a new book that focuses on the successes and stumbles of some of the region's most well-known figures. Aaron Putzi of Ankeny says his nonfiction book, You're Destined for Greatness, is a compilation of lessons learned by those who've excelled in business, sports, academia, finance, retail, and elected office.
It's a book of inspiration and empowerment, stories that have been shared with me over the last few years by 27 notable and influential people, with many with Midwest and Iowa roots.
Now, that list includes former University of Iowa football star Chuck Long and his coach Hayden Fry, Ambassador and former Governor Terry Branstad, Randy Itaker, the chairman and CEO of Hy-Vee. Putsy says his book zeroes in on how our attitudes and the choices we make impact everything we attempt and achieve.
We can all use a little bit more inspiration and aspiration in how we go about living our lives, especially during a time where there just seems to be a constant stream of negative news and negative information. We can all use our battery charge now and then.
Putsy says books sold through his website, PutsyInc.com, will benefit the youth organization Junior Achievement, and that is PUTZEINK.com. That's a look at local news for the newsroom. I'm Bob Fisher.
This is AM 1400 KVFD, the voice of Fort Dodge. It's 2:38, 65 degrees, just a gorgeous day right now. The rest of today, sunny with a high of 70, overnight some rain, of course. Low 58, showers and thunderstorms early tomorrow. High 80, it'll be windy, of course. On Saturday, again, a chance of rain. Sunny with a high of 80. On Sunday, it's going to be sunny with a high of 77. Memorial Day, it will rain, mostly cloudy with a high of 75. Tuesday, chance of a thunderstorm, mostly cloudy with a high of 70. Wednesday, sunny with a high of 70 degrees. Right now in town, again, 65 degrees at AM 1400, KVFD, the voice of Fort Dodge. Obituary is brought to you this hour by Gunderson Funeral Home and Cremation Services at 1650 North 15th Street, Fort Dodge. You may contact Gunderson Funeral Home and Cremation Services by calling 515-576-7128 or online at www.gundersonfuneralhome.com. I'm sorry to report the death of Nancy F. Stonick. Nancy Stonick, 87 of Fort Dodge, died on Wednesday at the Simpson Healthcare Center. Arrangements for Nancy Stonick have been entrusted to the Gunderson Funeral Home. Michael Ray Parrish, 80 years old of Fort Dodge, died Wednesday at the Marion home. There will be a celebration of his life, and that'll be held at a later date. Obituaries this hour brought to you by Gunderson Funeral Home and Cremation Services at 1615 North 15th Street, Fort Dodge. You may contact Gunderson Funeral Home and Cremation Services by calling 515-576-7128 or online at www.gundersonfuneralhome.com. It's 2:39 at AM 1400 KVFD. And it's 65 degrees. With a look at the closing market report, here's Dwayne Murley.
Here's a look at how the markets closed today. July corn down 4 3/4 at 389 3/4. September down 5 1/4 at 398 1/2. December down 4 3/4 at 408. March down 3 1/2 at 419 1/4. July soybeans down 7 cents at 821 1/2. August down 7 1/4 at 828 1/4. September down 7 at 835 1/4. November down 7 cents at 848 1/4. July wheat closed down 2 1/2 at 470 1/4. Soybean meal down 110 a ton at 297.20. June live cattle up 15 cents at 110.80. August up 20 at 108.15. May feeder cattle up 15 cents at 135.60. August up 42 at 143.02. June lean hogs down 22 cents at 89.42. July down a dime to close at 90.95. From the farm desk, I'm Dwayne Murley.
Michael Devine, the Doctor of Truth.
Does anyone have anything they'd like to confess?
At AM 1400 KVFD.
Well, that's right. I'm the Doctor of Truth. On the air with me now is David Osterberg, who's probably the Doctor of Clean Water. David Osterberg, how are you?
I'm pretty good.
All right. David Osterberg's, of course, with the Iowa Policy Project. He's the co-founder. Iowa Policy Project is a group in Iowa City dedicated to research-backed information that they hope will affect public policy in the ongoing conversation. And the painful joke that we have sometimes is, of what good is research in fact if we have emotion?
That's how we always start this.
That's how we start it. And I really see the long march of history as just a long, sad parade of poor people being relentlessly screwed by the wealthy and powerful.
Well,
save me from myself,
well,
David.
Jay,
Save
I
me
don't know
from
what to say
myself.
about that.
Save me from myself, David. I'm circling the drain here today. So you want to talk about clean water? Do poor people get clean water, or are they just they're not deserving of it because they're not wealthy?
Well, actually, I think you know that about a month ago we put out a paper that showed that this new nutrient reduction strategy that came out in 2013.
Right.
There was no new money. when you look back and found all the money we were spending on water quality in the state of Iowa, it didn't go up at all. It had been going along 2007, 8, 9, and then we get this great recession, and then everything goes down.
Mm-hmm.
We haven't got back up to that until 2018. Finally, they passed a new funding bill, but it didn't happen with a nutrient reduction strategy. It took 5 more years before we actually found new money.
Well, where did you find it?
Well, yeah, exactly. Where did you find it? Well, they found it by taking away from schools.
Of course.
There was no new money. 2018, they say, all right, now we're serious. We're going to start spending money on water quality. But there wasn't anything new. There wasn't a new fee on somebody, nothing. They just decided we're going to do it, move over everybody else in the budget, and you're going to get less. And since 60% of our budget is schools, that's why I say they took it from schools.
Well, maybe we can get Tom Miller to stop spending money on his anti-Trump lawsuits. I mean, I know that's a passion with Democrats, but come on, man.
Yeah, well,
and of course, you and I have talked about the Church of the Republicans before. The ultimate sin is raising taxes. The ultimate sin.
It seems to be. It seems to be.
Yeah.
And that's what but you see now, getting back to, low-income people, that's where we started.
Yes.
The new plan, to really find some money that would amount to anything rather than the small amount that the 2018 bill put in, they're talking about putting a 3/8 of the next penny sales tax increase would go to outdoor recreation and a lot of it to water quality. We started looking at that, and what that does, of course, since the sales tax is the worst tax for working people, it mainly says we're going to fund water quality, but we're going to do it by raising taxes that poor people pay the most of.
Yeah, that's called widening the tax burden. In other words, it's a way to get everybody to get skin in the game and feel the pinch of taxes. So even some poor slob who benefits when there's money spent in our state, some poor slob who benefits from government spending thinks he's being hosed by a sales tax increase.
Exactly. And he can go fishing some places where he couldn't before, but he's paying for it. And he's paying a much higher percentage of his income. We're saying I don't know, the family, paying a much higher portion of that family income than a high-income family income, because they don't pay as much in sales tax because they don't buy stuff that there's a sales tax on as much as low-income people do. Mainly it's saving. So, when you get higher income, you end up saving money. And when you're saving, you're not getting taxed on it.
This might be the only radio station in the state where working people and poor people are spoken of as if they might deserve something in life other than work. And, well, that's it. Work and misery and in poverty. I mean, apparently that's the American way.
Well, that's the Iowa way anyway. And so what we're looking at, we're saying, okay, if you're going to raise the sales tax, you're not going to raise it by 3/8 of a cent. You've never done that in 50 years. In 50 years, when we've raised sales tax, we've done it by a penny every single year. So you're going to raise it by a penny, take some of that penny and figure out a way of giving it back to the low income people. The lowest 40% is what we decided. Let's make sure that there are a couple of already existing state programs which give them a better break on their income tax. One is the earned income tax credit.
Sure.
You know how that works?
Oh, yeah.
If you're working, you get this earned in. If you're working and you got kids, as you work, the percentage goes up a little bit. It flattens out, and then if you get wealthier, then you lose some of that tax credit.
Sure.
It's a tax credit worth $350 for a year.
Mm-hmm.
That's all. About $350 for most low-income families. Well, that sales tax increase is going to increase them by another $150. So you raise the earned income tax credit from 15% of the federal to 20% of the federal. I think we figured it 22 to be more exact. And that would kind of undo some of the fact that we're making the lowest income people pay the highest percentage.
Of course. That's who is most affected every single time. I mean, if you look at the percentage of taxes paid by the wealthiest people in the state, it's minuscule to non-existent. That's why we have so many tax attorneys and CPAs in our state. I mean, you can drive around Fort Dodge. There's a lot of law firms and CPA firms here, and they're all taking care of the money. They're keeping the money out of government hands.
Out of government hands. And yet, well, the interesting about that is a lot of them aren't even in the state. They have, they own some farmland or something. They live in Chicago. They got to pay income tax in Iowa. And that's when we cut income tax, we're cutting the taxes to a whole bunch of people who aren't even Iowans. We do that all the time.
Oh, sure. It's the same thing.
And there's another credit also that you may not know about. I knew about it because when I was in the legislature, we increased it a little bit. If you're elderly, that you're no longer working, we're assuming, or you're disabled, you can get something like the homestead credit, but it's an additional credit on your property tax, and it also applies to renters. If you're low income and you're disabled, you get money back as a credit towards the property tax that's part of your rent. And that's another place you could increase that by another $150. Again, that's kind of the average of that sales tax increase, and take care of those folks as well. So that's what we're saying. Look, we should agree that we need to do something about water quality. Heck, we passed this, state constitutional amendment back in 2010 saying we want to do that. But we want to do it by putting a tax on that hurts poor people the most. Let's not do that. Let's raise the thing a penny. And when you do, 3/8 of it goes to water quality and outdoor recreation, and another portion of it goes to taking the sting out of that sales tax increase for low income people, and the rest can go to mental health or schools or something else. That's what this paper that I'm working on now is.
Well,
so I'm just going through and figuring out those numbers. Figuring out this $150 took a little work.
Well, I look forward to reading that. Of course, this is kind of my wheelhouse. Climate change is more your thing, I understand, and water quality primarily. But the problem of poverty in our state is much deeper than most people understand, and it will remain so as long as the answer to poverty in our state is tax cuts and incentives to business.
That's right. That's right. And right to work. We're going to make sure it's harder to organize.
It's a sacred right. Well, apparently, I've always been after the Democratic Party. They haven't made it a right to work in 50 years, probably longer than that. And the reason is, they tell me, is that that's a sacred icon with the Republican Party. The Republican Party will set itself on fire before they see anything done with right to work. I mean, literally. I mean, they're really crazed about it. I mean, they stopped a minimum wage because of some fast food franchise owners in Des Moines.
Yeah, exactly. No, I mean, think of that. I mean, that you won't let the county. You got elected people. I mean, when I go and vote for whoever is going to be governor or whoever is going to be my representative, I was also voting, the same election for a county supervisor. We elect those people. They decided in my county that they wanted to raise the minimum wage. Okay, if I don't like it, then I fire them. I don't have the legislature come in and take away that possibility. That's exactly what they did.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. No, I still see advertisements in our local paper for fast-paced workplace, $12 an hour.
Yeah, right.
I will say that the wages in our area are starting to catch up a little bit.
Well, they're starting to do that every place because we've kind of run out of people. And,
yeah. Funny how that works out. See, I keep telling my Democratic friends, you want to talk immigration and have a lot of sympathy for illegal immigrants? Fine. Understand that you're flooding the workplace, and when you do that, it drives the need for wages down, or the not the need for wages, but the need for
for the wages you have to pay if you're an employer. Yeah.
That's exactly right. That's what I'm trying to say. But
yeah,
I guess the Democrats think that makes them look too good to feel sympathy for people. I don't know. I can't tell you, but I know that it just spreads poverty, and we're already a fairly poor state. I know. Go to the east side of Des Moines, for God's sake, or go to the north end of Dubuque, or Iowa City. I think you're okay there, aren't you, David?
I think it's well. I live in this little.
You live in Mount Vernon,
boutique town of Mount Vernon.
Yeah, so. Boutique town. Yeah, I'll try to get there for the beef festival. What is it? The beef festival or the beef?
That's in Solon.
That's in Solon. I think.
Yeah, no, we have, we're more sophisticated. We have chocolate stroll coming up.
Chocolate stroll. Mm-hmm. That sounds like such a thing the entire faculty at the University of Iowa would go to.
Or Cornell College.
Or Cornell. Right. Or That's Cornell, right. Absolutely. That's right. Whatever happened to your former student, Ron Cormett there? I thought he was run for governor, and that didn't work out for him. He didn't get his signatures right on the petition. He vanished. Do you know what?
Vanished. We haven't heard much. I haven't heard from him lately. He's still politically active, and he's working. He has a good job. No longer mayor.
Yeah, no, he's no longer mayor of Cedar Rapids. For a Republican, he didn't seem to be as what should I say, as doctrinaire as some of the other Republicans are.
That's right. Except, I don't know, Ron, we would have disagreed on his, he wanted actually to pass that 3/8 cent, but then he wanted to take the other 5/8 and cut income taxes for rich people. So he's still a Republican.
Oh, yeah. There's no doubt he is a Republican, but he's not he's not a Branstad Reynolds Republican who just chant the mantra. They're just, low taxes.
And he and Branstad had a very bad relationship. They didn't like one another.
Well, I could see, knowing Corbett a little bit and having been around to Branstad a little bit, I could see that. I could see.
If I had the choice, of course, I'd take Ron.
Yeah, I would too. I think. Branstad was the business candidate, and I've, talked about it with you. I've talked about it on this radio station many, many times. Branstad didn't give one single damn about social issues. He was determined to smash public employee unions and to lower business taxes and keep taxes low, if not non-existent, for the wealthiest people in the state. And he's pretty much been successful.
And it was successful at that, and then giving away huge tax breaks to even the most undeserving, often out-of-state corporations. That's the thing that you can.
But the key word there, David.
I can see an argument going maybe on that we have to encourage business, but why do we always encourage the biggest businesses or from out of Chicago or out of California or someplace? That's who we give those tax breaks to.
Well, you said he would give tax breaks to the most undeserving corporations, or you said something like that. Well, it was still a corporation in Branstad's mind, and they are deserving.
Right, they're deserving. In fact, the big fiasco was that fertilizer plant. It was an Egyptian company.
Yes, it was an Egyptian company. And they were going to have all local labor. Debbie Durham herself was in this very studio telling me that that plant was going to be built by local labor, and they had a great working relationship with the union people in that area. That lasted, a couple months, and they brought in, some slave labor from Texas. They did. They did. It was all nonsense. But David Osterberg is with the Iowa Policy Project. You can find out more about the Iowa Policy Project by going to iowapolicyproject.org or iowafiscal.org. If you'd like to know what's happening in our world, those are two great websites to go to. David, thank you.
Or what could happen in our world. That's what we kind of specialize. This is the kind of policy, if we did this, low-income people would be better off. We do that.
Oh, and you are relentlessly optimistic, and I certainly need that because I'm relentlessly pessimistic. Thank you, David.
Hey, thank you, Mike.
It's 2:57 at AM 1400 KVFT.
In today's economy, it just makes sense to plan ahead. At Historic Bruce Funeral Home, pre-planning your funeral arrangements can save you money. By planning ahead, you can secure your arrangements at today's prices, no matter when our services are needed. Pre-planning your funeral is one of the most thoughtful things you can do for your family. Call us for details. Historic Bruce Funeral Home, Fort Dodge. Online at brucesfuneralhome.com.
Victory Motors in Fort Dodge is looking for an automotive tech to join their fast-paced work environment. Ideal applicants would have an excellent work ethic, be safety conscious, and have their own tools. An automotive tech degree or a 2 ASE certifications minimum and at least 4 years on the job experience is required. Competitive hourly pay with 2 weeks paid vacation to start. Stop working on flag hours and start taking home a consistent paycheck every week. Apply in person at Victory Motors on 169 South Fort Dodge. Victory Motors is an equal opportunity employer.
Need to brighten up your home? Hi, this is Dean Sternberg with Jim's Carpet One Floor and Home. Many people don't know we sell and install cabinets, Gerber window treatments, walk-in ceramic showers, as well as all other types of flooring. Why pick your installer from a card on a board where you have no idea of their capabilities when you can get a fully bonded and insured installation from Jim's Carpet One Floor and Home? We've been in the business since 1952 and stand behind every sale. Jim's Carpet One Floor and Home across from Decker Truck Line in Fort Dodge.
Pets are more than just pets. They're family. Who's a good boy? That's why Bob's for Dogs from Skechers will make a donation to the Petco Foundation for every pair of shoes sold. In fact, our shoes have already helped save the lives of over 240,000 shelter pets. And now, thanks to Skechers' partnership with the Petco Foundation, you can find Bob's at over 600 Petco stores nationwide, plus other fine retailers, and help pets find the loving families they all deserve. Bob's from Skechers, available at Petco, Skechers, and wherever stylish shoes are sold.
When severe weather threatens, keep it here for the Severe Weather Advisor. Brought to you by Creative Signs and Graphics Fort Dodge. For signs, decals, vehicle graphics, magnets, logos, customized documents, and more. If your business needs it, Creative Signs and Graphics can make it. And a stitch above the rest embroidery, Fort Dodge. Step out in style with quality brands, timely turnaround, and professional service. A stitch above the rest. Embroidery professionals worth finding. Remember, when severe weather threatens, stay with your friends on KVFD.
All right, this is AM 1400, KVFD, the voice of Fort Dodge. Our sincere thanks to Keaton Dorneth, Jill Nelson, and David Osberg, our guests this past hour. Sam Clovis will join us in the next hour. Mayor Matt Bremrick will be here in the 4 o'clock hour. You're listening to AM 1400, KVFD, the voice of Fort Dodge.
Hi, this is Leslie Segretti.
And I'm Tom Kreitler, and you can hear the Money Pit every Saturday afternoon from 4 to 6 on the voice of Fort Dodge, AM 1400 KVFD, Fort Dodge.
A new round of farm aid. I'm Lisa Brady, Fox News. President Trump moments ago outlining $16 billion in aid for U.S. farmers on top of $11 billion last year, aimed at easing the impact of retaliatory tariffs as a trade dispute with China wears on.
Our farmers will be greatly helped. We want to get them back to the point where they would have had if they had a good year.
The aid will come from a farm support account controlled by the Agriculture Department, so it doesn't need additional congressional approval. Part of the money will be for helping to build markets elsewhere.
What we're doing is looking for markets all over the world, and we've got great successes. We're opening up some things in India, Malaysia, Indonesia, Thailand, Philippines, and other countries.
But Agriculture Secretary Sonny Perdue also says the U.S. hopes China comes back to the table after the recent impasse in trade talks. Last-minute work to change a disaster relief bill reported in the U.S. Senate before lawmakers leave town for a holiday recess.
I first believe we should not be leaving.
House Minority Leader Kevin McCarthy, as each side blames the other for an impasse on disaster relief, mainly over border-related funding and the amount of money for Puerto Rico. But a bipartisan effort apparently continuing behind the scenes, even after the public feud between the president and the House Speaker.
Again, I pray for the President of the United States. I wish that his family or his administration or his staff would have an intervention for the good of the country.
Speaker Nancy Pelosi says the president used her cover-up allegation as an excuse to scrap an infrastructure meeting yesterday. The White House disputes that and says Democrats just want to investigate, not legislate. President Trump moments ago calling Pelosi a mess. The Dow down 286 points. The closing bell could have been worse. It was down over 400 during the session. The S&P and the NASDAQ also down over 1%. This is Fox News.
Hi, I'm Jay Farner, CEO of Quicken Loans, America's largest mortgage lender. Spring is prime home buying season, so if you're thinking about buying a home, right now is the time to lock a low rate, which can save you money every month on your new mortgage. With our exclusive Rate Shield approval, the low rate you lock today is protected for up to 90 days while you shop for your new home. With a Rate Shield approval, if rates go up, your low rate stays locked. But if rates go down, you get that new, even lower rate. Either way, you win. Talk to us today at 800-QUICKEN or go to rocketmortgage.com to take advantage. Here's another great reason to work with us. For a record 9 years in a row, J.D. Power has ranked Quicken Loans highest in the nation in customer satisfaction for primary mortgage origination. Again, to lock in today's low mortgage interest rate and get the security of our exclusive Rate Shield approval, call us today at 800-QUICKEN or go to rocketmortgage.com.
For J.D. Power award information, visit jdpower.com. Rate Shield approval only valid on certain 30-year fixed-rate loans. Equal housing lender. License in all 50 states. NMLS number 3030.
Designed to block those annoying robocalls wins overwhelming approval in the U.S. Senate.
Democrat Ed Markey and Republican John Thune teamed up on the TRACED Act, authorizing the FCC to slap penalties on callers flouting telemarketing rules. It won Senate approval 97-1.
They're not just a nuisance. Scammers use these calls to successfully prey on vulnerable populations like elderly Americans who are sometimes less technologically savvy.
The legislation would require service providers to adopt technology enabling verification that incoming calls are legitimate. Similar legislation is being considered in the House. On Capitol Hill, Jared Halpern, Fox News.
The danger's not over yet, even after a week of tornadoes in the central U.S., including miles of damage last night in Missouri.
It's really hard to believe, and it's so fortunate that no lives were lost here in Jefferson City. People are returning to their apartments that are obliterated, mangled cars, trees uprooted and launched into the air, and power lines down. Jefferson City police say a violent tornado touched down here around 11:40 p.m. last night. Neighbors that we've been talking to say they did hear sirens and had a few minutes to take shelter. In the forecast are more potential tornadoes and flooding that we've been covering across the Midwest, and the Missouri River that cuts right through this city is expected to crest at 9.5 feet above flood stage.
Fox's Matt Finn. Southwest of Jefferson City, though, in Golden City, Missouri, 3 people were killed. It could be many more months before the Boeing MAX jets, grounded after 2 disasters, could be allowed to return to service. The FAA administrator hinting at a longer timeline before a meeting today with representatives from more than 30 countries. The U.S. regulators hoping to convince counterparts around the world to lift their bans on the planes soon after the FAA eventually does. I'm Lisa Brady. This is Fox News.
Your news, your town, your station. KVFD News when it breaks.
With a look at local news from the newsroom, I'm Bob Fisher reporting. Attorney General Tom Miller of Democrats says the agreement he's made with Republican Governor Kim Reynolds means it's pretty unlikely that he'll sign the state of Iowa onto multi-state lawsuits challenging Trump administration policies. Governor Reynolds yesterday used her item veto authority to nix a policy that would have forced Miller to get permission from her, the state's Republican-led executive council, or from the legislature's Republican majority to join lawsuits filed in courts outside of Iowa. However, Miller has struck what he calls a good faith agreement that's not set in Iowa law, and has promised to seek the governor's consent before joining any multi-state lawsuits over the next 20 months.
My main concern about this was over the institution of the Office of Attorney General and the future of the office and my successors.
Miller also got some backup from current attorneys general, including from Republicans in Idaho and Nebraska, who urged Governor Reynolds to reject the proposal from GOP lawmakers. One of the Republican legislators who sought to put restraints on Miller in state law says he's pleased the governor pursued this compromise. And if Miller intends to challenge Trump administration policies in the future, he'll be doing so under his own name rather than on behalf of the state of Iowa. 5 Eastern Iowa men have been charged with sex trafficking, often in the Johnson County area. OK Henderson with more.
29-year-old Isaiah Patterson is accused of using advertising to sell sex with a minor girl. 25-year-old Arian West is accused of forcing 2 minors to have sex for money. 39-year-old Albert Kelly Price is charged with paying 3 minors to have sex in hotels and other locations. 52-year-old Kendall Stebb has been charged with a variety of sex trafficking, drug, and firearm offenses. And 40-year-old Tommy Tate Collins is charged with sex trafficking a minor and giving the victim marijuana and cocaine. Radio Iowa, I'm OK Henderson.
As the American Red Cross responds to another round of deadly tornadoes overnight, Iowa Senator Chuck Grassley is introducing legislation that aims to make sure that the relief agency is spending its funds appropriately. Grassley chairs the Senate Finance Committee and says his bill would give a congressional watchdog group more complete access to Red Cross records for oversight.
It's a tax-exempt organization. My committee has responsibility over making sure tax exemption is used properly.
He says the bipartisan American Red Cross Transparency Act of 2019 responds to concerns the agency tried to halt a review by the Government Accountability Office and limited the scope of the review.
We feel that there hasn't been enough transparency on the part of this federally chartered organization, and that's pretty important because most nonprofits aren't federally chartered. Very few are.
The American people rely on the Red Cross to respond when tragedy strikes and receives federal tax dollars for some of its disaster responses. Grassley says Congress has a responsibility to make sure the Red Cross answers questions asked on the public's behalf and is operating up to the standards required of it during disasters.
The bottom line is the Red Cross needs to share their books with the federal government when they're investigated. And we want to make sure that the Government Accountability Office has access to the records so the Red Cross can't impede government review.
Grassley says the Red Cross has shown an unwillingness to answer questions in the past, and the legislation strengthens transparency to make the agency more accountable to the public. An author from Central Iowa is releasing a new book that focuses on the successes and stumbles of some of the region's most well-known figures. Aaron Putzi of Ankeny says his nonfiction book, You're Destined for Greatness, is a compilation of lessons learned by those who've excelled in business, sports, academia, finance, retail, and elected office.
It's a book of inspiration and empowerment, stories that have been shared with me over the last few years by 27 notable and influential people, with many with Midwest and Iowa roots.
Now, that list includes former University of Iowa football star Chuck Long and his coach Hayden Fry, Ambassador and former Governor Terry Branstad, Randy Itaker, the chairman and CEO of Hy-Vee. Putzi says his book zeroes in on how our attitudes and the choices we make impact everything we attempt and achieve.
We can all use a little bit more inspiration and aspiration in how we go about living our lives, especially during a time where there just seems to be a constant stream of negative news and negative information. We can all use our battery charge now and then.
Putzi says books sold through his website, PutziInc.com, will benefit the youth organization Junior Achievement, and that is PUTZEINK.com. That's a look at local news for the newsroom. I'm Bob Fisher.
Here's the AM 1400 KVFD weatherology forecast. Partly cloudy skies this afternoon with daytime highs approaching 70. Winds out of the northwest 8 to 15 miles per hour. Scattered thunderstorms likely tonight. Lows dip down to about 58. Overcast skies. Cloudy skies tomorrow. Scattered thunderstorms likely. Highs level off around 77. From the Weatherology Weather Center, I'm meteorologist Jennifer Wojcicki. Currently, it's 67.
Laffersweiler's Funeral Home understands that losing a loved one is one of the most difficult things you will ever experience. They understand that a family who has experienced the loss of a loved one needs immediate assistance that often can't wait until the next morning. Laffersweiler's is there in the darkest moment of a family's life, guiding them through the emotional roller coaster of saying goodbye. More importantly, the staff at Laffersweiler's listens and they care. Laffersweiler Funeral Home, Fort Dodge, serving families like yours since 1856.
Ready to create your own income with your own home-based business where there's no such thing as getting laid off? If a billionaire entrepreneur spent 5 years and $20 million searching for the next big trend, wouldn't you want to know what he found? If you're serious about making money from home without having to leave home, then write this down. www.goherenext.com. You decide your income. Get the facts now. Goherenext.com.
Michael Devine, the mayor of Manville.
It's a fancy title for a part-time job.
Michael Devine at AM 1400 KVFD.
Well, I tell you, once again, we're delighted to welcome Sam Clovis to our program. Sam, how are you?
Doing great, Mike. How about you?
Well, I'm excellent as well. The weather's taking a turn for the best. You're out of the hospital. You were sick for a while. Sorry to hear that.
Well, I'm actually in a interim rehab facility. I've still got a long way to go, but I'm way better than I was. So I'm feeling better and doing a lot better, and very positive, very focused, and I'm going to get home here not too long from now. So I'm doing good.
Well, I think you're one of the leading intellectuals in our state. I'm not trying to blow smoke at you, but I really think that to be true, that you are one of the leading intellectuals in our state, and I appreciate you being on this program today. Sam Clovis is our guest. We're going to talk about the Democratic 2020 candidates for president. Cory Booker, first of all, we can go down a rather long list here. Cory Booker wants to institute an Office of Reproductive Freedom. He says he's going to do that if he's elected. Bernie Sanders wants to establish a base salary for teachers of $60,000 a year. I guess the rest of us poor slobs out here working in Iowa can just go get a third job to pay for that. Pete Buttigieg seems to be running on the fact that he's gay and kisses his husband or wife. I don't know what it is. I haven't got it all figured out yet. He kisses his wife long and hard in front of the cameras, and the crowd goes wild. I think personally he's a mile wide and a quarter of an inch deep. And Elizabeth Warren, of course, and Beto O'Rourke have called for President Trump to be impeached. There's 23 candidates here. We've only got an hour, Sam. But I'm just throwing a few things out to you. You start where you want.
Well, I do think one of the most interesting aspects of this is the number of Democrats that have jumped into this. I thought we had kind of set the bar at 17 Republicans last time around, and I thought that was a lot of folks, and now we're 23, and maybe more before we're done. I do think the field will start to winnow here before long, because money becomes a real issue, action becomes an issue. Doing well in Iowa, if you don't get 15% of the caucus vote in Iowa, then you don't get any delegates, and so the delegate count gets to be a real deal of after Nevada, which is the fourth protected event in the primary cycle. But I think the one thing I wanted to talk about, Mike, was just the agenda that is being professed collectively by this group of candidates. I don't think in my life I have ever seen an individual or even a group of candidates that have moved so far left so fast, I mean, to the point of being ridiculous, because no one, I mean, absolutely no one believes these people can implement any of this because there is simply no money to pay for any of it. And they don't seem to be able or want to be willing to talk about that. The real issue is debt deficit. We just had a CBS poll come out today. 71% of Americans believe that the economy is doing extremely well. And of that, 85% of the people believe that Trump has had something to do with that. So I think that those are big hills and it just seems that the Democrats are in total denial on any number of issues. And it's just, if it wasn't so ridiculous, it would be humorous.
Our guest is Sam Clovis here at AM 1400 KVFT. Sam, if we could just get you back in Washington and have you get next to President Trump and tell him to talk the economy, and nothing else, he'd be untouchable in 2020. Because you have a point, the Democrats have no response to that. All they want to talk about is child separation at the border and Trump's being mean to this group, Trump's being racist to this group. It's boring. It really is boring. There are three things people like to think about or must think about: what's happening in their home, what's happening in their pocketbook, and what's happening with their family. And the Democrats don't do one single thing about any of those.
But they haven't connected. See, here's the thing. That one thing, you can say whatever you want about Trump, whether you like him or don't like him, whether you think his policies are good or bad. The one thing is he's kept his promises. That's the big thing. But he has connected with the American people. The Democrats have not, and don't seem willing to be able to connect to the American people. They seem to be only able to go out, and it's almost like an echo chamber. What they're doing is it's like people who are walking past the graveyard at night. They don't know exactly what to do, but they gain some strength from being together. So they all keep saying the same things over and over again, and they convince themselves that they're right, even when they're 100% wrong, and they have not connected with the American people on any level. And I think it's going to really be a shattering defeat for them in 2020, especially if you, as you say, if the president comes out and says it's the Trump or it's the economy, stupid, and that's the way we go. It's the economy. And we go out here and just keep beating that drum. Because I worked with Larry Kudlow and Steve Moore and Art Laffer and Steve Forbes on formulating the outline of our tax plan. I remember being vilified in the Hill and at the Washington Post and the New York Times because I said we could get to 4% growth at some point, and we already have been to 4% growth. And all of the things that we predicted have come true. And so it is just, to me, it's remarkable. And the line that gets me the most is that when the Democrats say that Trump inherited a strong economy. Now, there's nothing further from we inherited a mess and an absolute mess when it comes to the economy. And so the next thing, and when you talk about this stuff, is they're just not connecting. They don't get it, and they don't seem to understand the free market system that is propelling the United States to positions that has never been seen in history of the world.
Well, they want to control it. I mean, the Democrats, and this is something that you have no doubt thought about. The Democrats are essentially a bunch of the leadership are essentially a bunch of educated people who, without politics, nobody would know who they were. And the Republicans are usually a bunch of hard-charging, independent types. Now, that annoys the Democrats, and they want to control this group out of jealousy and out of the knowledge that in the real world, they could never compete with them. The Democrats in the real world, if they come out of their offices on the Hill or wherever they're hiding and compete in the private sector, I mean, Bill and Hillary Clinton would be lawyers in Lone Rock, or not Lone Rock, but Little Rock. Give me a break. And by the way, speaking of Bill and Hillary Clinton, they're still touring the country, trying to stay relevant, trying to keep their name out there so they can come in. And this is really what I think, Sam. So they can come in and restore order to the Democratic Party nominating process. Oh, we have 23 people. It's chaos. What we need is to put Hillary up there one more time.
Well, it's either that or Michelle Obama, which is even a more frightening thought. But I think that is also a distinct possibility that she'll sit on the sidelines until the witching hour, and I use that term advisedly. And then we will have her come to the rescue at the convention or before the convention, where she won't have to spend any money, won't have to put out any positions, won't have to have a platform, won't have to do anything. And suddenly, because of her celebrity, she will then be able to come in and be the savior of the party and gain the nomination, which I think is a total travesty, because having campaigned myself, if I thought there was someone out there who would jump in at the last minute to try to save things, I would be on them like a robin on the June bug over the issue of the fact that they had done nothing and had sacrificed nothing and had not done anything to reach out to the American people in any way, shape, or form. So I think that the Democrats are really in a lot of trouble right now. One, they have too many candidates running. And two, I just don't think that they've done a very good job of articulating an agenda that matches the desires of most of the American people.
Well, they continue, and this is something I've seen of most Democratic nominees. They understand that they have lost touch with certainly the middle of the country. Both coasts, of course, at least the Northeast and California, Oregon, and Washington belong to them. But they have definitely lost touch and are viewed suspiciously, if not outright hostilely, by the average working people in this country. And by the way, they deserve to be seen that way. They have Bill Clinton totally screwed private sector workers. He was, and this is according to Alan Greenspan. Alan Greenspan said Bill Clinton was the best Republican president we ever had. And the reason was NAFTA and all these international trade deals. Now, that's the international trade deals. Farmers love them, but there, as has been widely talked about, there are people left behind by NAFTA. They are not the part of the investor class. Those are the people who used to vote Democratic, who now hate the Democrats' guts. And I'll tell you, they should hate them.
Well, let's go back and talk about the trade issue. You know, everybody thinks this is a new deal with China, that we're out here. This is a trade war that just started. We've been in a trade war with China for 40 years. It's just now that we have a president that's willing to stand up and do something about it. And I think in the short term, there will be some pain. There will be some losers in the short term. But in the long term, if Trump is able to pull this off, in the long term, the entire nation benefits from the fact that we will have much better trade terms. We'll be able to deal with on a much more of a level playing field, and we'll have some way to regulate, or at least to monitor the illegal, or should I say the questionable behavior of some of our trading partners, and China first among them. The issue that we have with China is that right now it is still treated as a less developed nation. Therefore, it does not come under the same scrutiny or the same rules in the World Trade Organization. So we end up having some real issues on trade with China because they get to play by a different set of rules. They subsidize much what goes on in their country. We do not. And they ask for our intellectual property. We don't ask for theirs. They ask us to be able to do a lot of other things, and we have to have agents that are Chinese. And to do that, we have to have partner companies. A lot of these other factors and a lot of it, I think what companies really need to do is start to evaluate, is it worth it to do business in China, or should we not be looking to move to Thailand or Vietnam or even India, where we can have better labor relations, more open aspects of this, and not have to meet those demands that are quite strenuous from the Chinese. And I think if we did that, if some of the companies would start doing that, these trade negotiations would get a hell of a lot easier, a lot faster.
Well, explain how this is going to be better for the United States now.
Well, the whole issue is that what we really need to do is to be able to enforce or to get China to back off of the issues that put us at a severe disadvantage. And the severe disadvantage is when we have to give up our intellectual property to the Chinese to do business in China. That is a huge issue. Because if we cannot protect our intellectual property, American patents, all of the trademarks, all the other aspects that we have to protect American industry are gone. So and then on the other side of it is the competition that comes from China is subsidized. It is supported by the Chinese government. That 2/3 of their government is still of their economy is still centrally controlled. So in the long run, if we are able to get some of those issues resolved, the American the American companies will not have to. It will not cost as much, and we will not be giving up anything when it comes to our intellectual property, which means we will be able to protect those assets much better. That is always better for the American people.
It is. And by the way, here in Iowa, of course, international trade is very important. and the farmers are very unhappy. And I understand that we have this going on with China. China, what do you think about China? Now, again, you've been in Washington. You've been a part of this administration. President Xi the other day announced that China, as far as the trade war was concerned, was in for the long march. The long march is, of course, from Chinese history. Mao and his forces marched across China. Well, they were being chased part of the time, but they eventually ended their march by conquering China, driving the I can't remember Chiang Kai-shek, excuse me, driving Chiang Kai-shek to the island of Taiwan. The Chinese do have a history of waiting it out. I mean, we're a little bit. We don't have the patience that the Chinese do. Is that going to what factor is that going to play?
Well, I do think that it plays a factor, and one of the things that we often do, Mike, is that we often project our culture and our behavior and our expected behaviors onto other people, and that is a huge mistake with the Chinese. We have to remember that their culture and their way of doing business is what's going to influence them. I think that they also are oftentimes, we don't ever know if what we're doing is effective or not, because they hide the reactions very well. Even though it may be eroding what they're doing or we're trying to do, we will never know that. So we have to be able to have better, what we used to call warnings and indications, where we would be able to figure out what it exactly is the impact of what's going on and what we're doing, and if it's having an impact. I think those are the kinds of things that we have to really take a hard look at. I have a lot of confidence in President Trump and Lighthizer and Mnuchin and Kudlow and the rest of them. The one fly in the ointment might be that we have some virulent anti-Chinese people as part of our trade team. And I think that's, without naming them, I think that could be a hang-up, because people are so entrenched against China that there may not be any room for give. And I do think that as we go forward, we have to give a little to get a lot. And I think that's really what we have to do, is provide the Chinese a way to save face. And at the same time, we can gain a tremendous amount from them if, and the perception is that it looks like it's a fair deal. They make up more than we do. I think that it has to be perceived as so by the Chinese, or it's not likely to happen.
Sam Clovis is our guest at AM 1400 KVFD. We're going to take an 8-minute break, bring you the news, and we'll be back with Sam. Hey, Sam, thank you very much.
All right, I'll be right back.
All right, this is AM 1400 KVFD, the voice of Fort Dodge. It's 3:30.
Gunderson Funeral Home and Cremation Services.
Oh, why not just cremate me when I'm gone?
Sounds simple, doesn't it? However, there are many options to consider when cremation is chosen. From simple to detailed, we at Gunderson Funeral Home and Cremation Services can help you create a unique commemoration.
Gunderson Funeral Home and Cremation Services.
Hi, I'm Tommy. I'm a farmer, a wife, a mom, a leader in my community, and I live with HIV. My life is just like yours. I get up every day hoping for the best day possible out in field. I feed my soul with hard work and am dedicated to making the most out of every day. I wasn't always so optimistic, but once I found out that I'm just one of over 3,000 Iowans living with HIV, I knew I wasn't alone. I reached out to the Iowa Department of Public Health and found out I qualified for medication and medical care, financial help, transportation, housing, and counseling through Ryan White funding. That was a huge relief to me and my family. I've taken control of my diagnosis and take care of myself so I can live my best life. I'm living with HIV, not dying from it. Why wait? Reach out for testing and care services at StopHIVIowa.org.
Providing food, feed, and fuel for the world is a tough job, making a profit even tougher. Sukup Manufacturing has the solution. Store now, profit later. And if you're into storing grain, you need to make sure it's properly dried. Sukup offers more types of grain dryers than anyone else in the industry, so we're sure to have the one that fits your specific needs. And each one comes standard with the QuadraTouch Pro touchscreen control system, which enables you to check your Sukup dryer from your smartphone. Visit sukup.com to find your local Sukup dealer today and learn how we can help you store now, profit later.
With battery power made by Steel, your tools are as charged up to work as you are. And during Steel Dealer Days, get $30 off the FSA 56 battery trimmer with the purchase of the BGA 56 battery blower set. Save on battery power made by Steel now during Dealer Days. Visit SteelDealers.com. Offer valid through 6/30/2019 at participating dealers while supplies last. Not available in all markets. See dealer for details.
Your news, your town, your station. KVFD News when it breaks.
The look at local news from the newsroom. I'm Bob Fisher reporting. Attorney General Tom Miller, Democrat, says the agreement he's made with Republican Governor Kim Reynolds means it's pretty unlikely that he'll sign the state of Iowa onto multi-state lawsuits challenging Trump administration policies. Governor Reynolds yesterday used her item veto authority to nix a policy that would have forced Miller to get permission from her, the state's Republican-led executive council, or from the legislature's Republican majority to join lawsuits filed in courts outside of Iowa. However, Miller has struck what he calls a good faith agreement that's not set in Iowa law, and has promised to seek the governor's consent before joining any multi-state lawsuits over the next 20 months.
My main concern about this was over the institution of the Office of Attorney General and the future of the office and my successors.
Miller also got some backup from current attorneys general, including from Republicans in Idaho and Nebraska, who urged Governor Reynolds to reject the proposal from GOP lawmakers. One of the Republican legislators who sought to put restraints on Miller in state law says he's pleased the governor pursued this compromise. And if Miller intends to challenge Trump administration policies in the future, he'll be doing so under his own name rather than on behalf of the state of Iowa. 5 Eastern Iowa men have been charged with sex trafficking, often in the Johnson County area. OK Henderson with more.
29-year-old Isaiah Patterson is accused of using advertising to sell sex with a minor girl. 25-year-old Arian West is accused of forcing 2 minors to have sex for money. 39-year-old Albert Kelly Price is charged with paying 3 minors to have sex in hotels and other locations. 52-year-old Kendall Stebb has been charged with a variety of sex trafficking, drug, and firearm offenses. And 40-year-old Tommy Tate Collins is charged with sex trafficking a minor and giving the victim marijuana and cocaine. Radio Iowa, I'm OK Henderson.
As the American Red Cross responds to another round of deadly tornadoes overnight, Iowa Senator Chuck Grassley is introducing legislation that aims to make sure that the relief agency is spending its funds appropriately. Grassley chairs the Senate Finance Committee and says his bill would give a congressional watchdog group more complete access to Red Cross records for oversight.
It's a tax-exempt organization. My committee has responsibility over making sure tax exemption is used properly.
He says the bipartisan American Red Cross Transparency Act of 2019 responds to concerns the agency tried to halt a review by the Government Accountability Office and limited the scope of the review.
We feel that there hasn't been enough transparency on the part of this federally chartered organization. And that's pretty important because most nonprofits aren't federally chartered. Very few are.
The American people rely on the Red Cross to respond when tragedy strikes and receives federal tax dollars for some of its disaster responses. Grassley says Congress has a responsibility to make sure the Red Cross answers questions asked on the public's behalf and is operating up to the standards required of it during disasters.
The bottom line is the Red Cross needs to share their books with the federal government when they're investigated. And we want to make sure that the Government Accountability Office has access to the records so the Red Cross can't impede government review.
Grassley says the Red Cross has shown an unwillingness to answer questions in the past, and the legislation strengthens transparency to make the agency more accountable to the public. An author from Central Iowa is releasing a new book that focuses on the successes and stumbles of some of the region's most well-known figures. Aaron Putzi of Ankeny says his nonfiction book, You're Destined for Greatness, is a compilation of lessons learned by those who have excelled in business, sports, academia, finance, retail, and elected office.
It's a book of inspiration and empowerment, stories that have been shared with me over the last few years by 27 notable and influential people, with many with Midwest and Iowa roots.
Now, that list includes former University of Iowa football star Chuck Long and his coach Hayden Fry, Ambassador and former Governor Terry Branstad, Randy Itaker, the chairman and CEO of Hy-Vee. Putsy says his book zeroes in on how our attitudes and the choices we make impact everything we attempt and achieve.
We can all use a little bit more inspiration and aspiration in how we go about living our lives, especially during a time where there just seems to be a constant stream of negative news and negative information. We can all use our battery charge now and then.
Putsy says books sold through his website, putzyinc.com, will benefit the youth organization Junior Achievement, and that is PUTZEINK.com. That's a look at local news. For the newsroom, I'm Bob Fisher.
Here's the AM 1400 KVFD weatherology forecast. Partly cloudy skies this afternoon with daytime highs approaching 70. Winds out of the northwest 8 to 15 miles per hour. Scattered thunderstorms likely. Tonight, lows dip down to about 58. Overcast skies. Cloudy skies. Tomorrow, scattered thunderstorms likely. Highs level off around 77. From the Weatherology Weather Center, I'm meteorologist Jennifer Wojcicki. Currently, it's 67.
Here's a look at how the markets closed today. July corn down 4 3/4 at 389 3/4. September down 5 1/4 at 398 1/2. December down 4 3/4 at 408. March down 3 1/2 at 419 1/4. July soybeans down 7 cents at 821 1/2. August down 7 1/4 at 828 1/4. September down 7 at 835 1/4. November down 7 cents at 848 1/4. July wheat closed down 2 1/2 at 470 1/4. Soybean meal down 110 a ton at 297.20. June live cattle up 15 cents at 110.80. August up 20 at 108.15. May feeder cattle up 15 cents at 135.60. August up 42 at 143.02. June lean hogs down 22 cents at 89.42. July down a dime to close at 90.95. From the farm desk, I'm Dwayne Murley.
Michael Devine at AM 1400.
In the name of justice and the American way of life.
With 60 rounds of freedom.
All right, this is AM 1400, KVFD, the voice of Fort Dodge. We're proud to welcome back Sam Clovis to the program. Sam, we were talking about 2020 Democratic presidential candidates there for a little while. It seems like they do have a couple things in common. Every single one of them want to make abortion constitutional, if not mandatory, and they want to go around and round up the guns. Eric Swalwell, who grew up, he was, I think he was born here in Iowa. He's now a congressman out in California. He literally wants to go around to everybody's house and pick up their guns. And I want to address Pete Buttigieg with you. Because Pete even seems to, he doesn't quite say it, but what he seems to be telling us, and he has no real concrete policy proposals at all. But Pete walks up to the threshold of telling us that we should vote for him because he's a nice-looking gay guy from the American heartland, and that's it. He is a sign of social progress in our country, and he is deserving of high office as such. I can't believe what I'm hearing from the guy, but that seems to be what he's saying.
Well, I think you're right, but I also harken back to an election that took place in 2008 where a gentleman ended up with the Democrat nomination and essentially wanted us to vote for him because he was a person of color.
Absolutely.
And so I see no difference, and I agree. That individual had nothing from a policy perspective to give us other than the fact he was going to drag us off the left. And I think Pete Buttigieg is the same way, that he has nothing. And I agree with you. I think he's a mile wide and a millimeter deep, and I just don't think there's anything there. And I think it's the novelty of a gay man who's running for president that is married to another man, and I think that's his platform. And I'm gay, and I'm married to another man, so that's what the platform And that's what I'm running on. You sit and ask yourself, are the American people, and particularly the Democrat Party, are they so vacuous and vapid in their views that's what's going to carry the day for them?
Oh,
Do
yeah.
they not want someone who's going to be a person who has some gravitas, a person who can go out and provide leadership? You know, the one thing I will tell you this, Mike, the one thing I found in Washington, D.C., the one commodity that was the absolute, the least available in all things I found was leadership. There is so little leadership. These people get elected to office and they think that makes them automatically leaders. Most of them got elected to office because they got elected to office. They've shown nothing, they've proven nothing, and they wouldn't be able to lead you across the street. So those are the kinds of things that I think we're facing today with the Democrats. Imagine what's Cory Booker running. Now, on the gun thing, let me just tell you that there are a lot of people out there that would like to confiscate guns. And they would like to come in and take away, I don't know, maybe all of our guns or whatever. There are 100 million people in America that own guns. There are 300 million guns in the United States. It is a gun nation. It has been ruled or governed by gun people, and it will continue to be governed by gun people because it is our heritage. It is our way of life. It is a constitutional guarantee. And that to think that someone is going to come in and take our guns is ludicrous, because I don't think there's anybody, and I don't think the government, and I should never say never, but I don't think the government would ever be in a position to ever legislate to that level where they would want to be able to have a national registry, come in and take any gun with a magazine that holds more than 10 rounds, anything that looks like an assault rifle, yada, yada. Because what they're essentially doing is that the arming the American people. This is what you find in socialist nations that are governed by authoritarian governments. The very first thing they do is take guns. It's the very first thing they do. Because if the guns are taken, the nation cannot defend itself against its own government.
That's right. And that guns in the hands of the people have always frightened the ruling class. And since, as we've talked, the Democratic Party has a very tenuous hold on us, really, they're particularly afraid of people with guns. And, of course, there's these murderous lunatics, these people who are out of their minds running around doing all these terrible school shootings. And pretty soon, and this is intentional on the Democratic Party's part, but pretty soon they have equated some lunatic who shot up a school in Florida with a guy like me who's got a few guns at home. Believe me, I'm not a threat to anybody unless you break into my house. Then you've got trouble.
Then you've got no trouble. I've got defense in depth. I've got dogs, and that's usually the first good defense. And then I've got guns. And if you get past the dogs, then you've accomplished a great deal, and just your fight in life has gotten worse, because now you're going to face the onslaught of a house full of guns. I do have guns. I collect guns. And my wife has guns. My stepson has guns. So we have guns. A lot of it is, I do it for stored value and a lot of other things. But also, when I started my radio program in 2010, Mike, you know what it's like. You know what happens to people who put themselves out, who are conservatives, libertarians, who get on the radio, and then suddenly you become a target. And I'm telling you, that was one of the most frightening things that I never dreamed I would encounter that in my life. And that was one of the things, and that's when I started collecting guns and getting my concealed carry permit, is when I was starting to be threatened because I was on the radio and I have concern. That is one of and most people in America have no idea what it's like to be a conservative and be like have no idea what an incredible thing that is, and what an experience that has to be for most people. And it is just frightening sometimes what happens.
Yeah, it is. There's plenty of Democratic Party crazies out there. There really is. What do you what do you think of my analysis of Buttigieg? I haven't heard really much from him.
No, I think you're spot on. I think you're absolutely spot on. And unfortunately, I think there's some others that are running on the same thing. Kamala Harris. I vote for me because I'm an African American woman. You have I don't know what Cory Booker's running on. I have no clue.
He's running on the federal office to ensure abortion rights. That's it.
Let's talk about abortion. This is something that has gone through the court system. We had Roe v. Wade, and now 44 years ago. We're longer ago than that, 73. So now it's been 46 years. So we are looking at a lot of the states that have finally circled back and have tried to take control of the abortion question in the states. And this is one time when the liberals, who blame us for being troglodytes, haters of science, anti-intellectuals, this is when they're the ones denying the science. When we come in and say, can we not protect a baby at 20 weeks? Can we not protect a baby that has a heartbeat? When is a fetus really a person? When do we get? And I'm not advocating personhood. What I'm advocating is common sense. When do we get to that point where we must protect the child and the child gains legal status that the state has an interest in protecting? Now, if you go back to Roe v. Wade, that was where the state said, okay, in the first trimester, we don't have an interest. In the second trimester, we share an interest. And in the third trimester, that's where we really ought to be in charge there and come in there and have some control. So anybody that's read Roe v. Wade sits there and scratch your head to say, how in the world did they ever come up with this? And so the issue then is because we didn't have the science. We didn't have technical capabilities. And at some point, a fetus in the womb has to gain legal protections for which the state has an interest in protecting an entity that cannot protect itself. That is the logic that has to be used in dealing with the abortion question.
This is AM 1400 KVFD, the voice for Dodge. Our guest is Sam Clovis. One of the greatest lies ever told in modern times is that the Democratic Party has science and reason on their side. And I would point to a study conducted by the University of Chicago that showed that children raised in non-religious homes were more altruistic and kinder than children raised in religious homes. The lead researcher was a well-known French Anglo professor by the name of Jean Decety, D-E-C-E-T-Y. He led the study. However, it was quickly revealed by his fellow researchers and peers that he had erred in a most basic research, with a very basic research technique. And the study itself was deemed flawed and not worthy of serious further consideration. However, it caught fire in the liberal universe. It's been all over social media. It's a flawed study. It is not the truth. But the University of Chicago did it. And this Professor Decety, the well-known Professor Decety, led the study. Yes, I suspect anyway, that the error, such a basic error, wasn't a mistake. I think they went in with a bias and came out with this proof that children raised in non-religious homes are actually more altruistic than children raised in religious homes. The study is nonsense, but it's widely quoted. There is also studies that show that other states have brought forth that tell us that transgender surgeries are more cost efficient. Now, these same states don't allow the procedure to be charged to taxpayers. But they somehow, in the Des Moines Register, all of a sudden, these 17 states are telling us how cost efficient and wonderful taxpayers paying for transgender surgery is. It's all a bunch of lies. It is nothing but lies. These are the same people who quote the Southern Poverty Law Center as without fault. I can't believe these people. And others buy it. Oh, well, this researcher said so. Oh, well, the Southern Poverty Law Center said so. Oh, Andrea Dworkin said so. Those people are activists and half crazy. I don't know.
Well, I think in the academic world, oftentimes, unfortunately, I think you find, and I think where, the climate science is probably a good place to go to look at, where people are selective in what they view and generally what they accept as the ground truth. I think that one of the things that I think is critical here is oftentimes today in academic life, whether we want to accept it, and I find it, abhorrent that we have academics that do this, I think oftentimes they have conclusions already arrived at, and then they go out and find the evidence to support that.
Well, that's activist studies, yes. And then pretty soon it's quoted here. I mean, the gay marriage thing was ridiculous. Justice Kennedy cited a study by a Harvard professor who had been arguing in favor, a sociologist no less, had been arguing in favor of gay marriage for 25 years. And he quoted this as the definitive objective study that convinced him to vote for gay marriage at the U.S. Supreme Court level.
Well, I think what you find is that a lot of times, now, people will go in and look at the census data, I think it's important to understand, exactly when we're talking about gay marriage or same-sex couples or any of that. If you go ahead and take a look at, and tax data is a good place to look. You look at the number of households, there are 150 million households and considered households in America. Now, that's a combination of male and female, married, male and female not married, cohabitant adults, same-sex couples, the whole thing. If you break it down and you look at the census data, you will find there are less than 800,000 identified same-sex couples for tax purposes in the United States. Less than 800,000. If you do the math on that, that is a very, very low percentage of the population. And I think that what we see is, and I'm not, I don't give a crap who people sleep with. I really don't, Mike. And I should, I just am tired of the whole argument about, being homophobic. I'm not homophobic.
No, that's right.
I don't care about that.
No, I don't either.
What I care about is the propagandizing of something that isn't true.
That's right.
That's the issue for me. Why do they keep advancing this notion to have everyone believe that 25% of the population is gay? It's not. It's less than 4% of the population identifies itself as LGBTQ. That's less than 4% of the population. And yet, if you watch television or you listen to the news or you look at Mayor Pete, all of a sudden you think that 25% of the population of America is gay. And it's simply not true.
Not true. And I'll tell you, the Iowa Supreme Court and the U.S. Supreme Court buy into these lies. They know they're lies, and they make favorable rulings in favor of activist studies anyway. Sam, we're going to have to go. I certainly appreciate you being on. Sam Clovis has been our guest. Look forward to talking with you again, same time, same station next week.
All right, buddy. We'll see you soon.
Take care. This is AM 1400 KVFT.
When I needed to hire, I had to post my jobs to lots of job boards in hopes of getting a few great candidates. I'd get a bunch of applicants, but most weren't right for my job. It was like trying to find a needle in a haystack. Then I went to ZipRecruiter.com/free and tried ZipRecruiter for free. Hiring is so much easier now. I post my jobs, and with one click, ZipRecruiter's smart matching technology sends them to over 100 top job boards and finds the right candidates for me. So while other companies might deliver a lot of hay, ZipRecruiter finds what I'm looking for: the needle in the haystack.
4 out of 5 employers who post a job in ZipRecruiter get a quality candidate through the site within the first day. ZipRecruiter, the smartest way to hire. And now you can try ZipRecruiter for free. That's right, free. Just go to this exclusive web address, ZipRecruiter.com/free. That's ZipRecruiter.com/free. ZipRecruiter.com/free.
The landscape of dining out in the U.S. is changing. People are spending more than half of their food budgets on meals away from home. But what is driving those decisions? I'm Julie Harker with Healthy Living on Brownfield. The National Pork Board recently completed a study that looked at the considerations and motivations that impact out-of-home dining decisions. Jared Sutton with the National Pork Board says when considering where and what to eat, there are three primary drivers for consumers.
Because we're pressed for time, we're looking for things that, really just kind of fit into our routine. And that convenience piece is critically important.
And he says people have an overwhelming number of options when eating out.
It's not just about restaurants anymore. Consumers are eating more food from convenience stores, from food trucks, from grocery retailers, and a whole lot more spaces.
The study also considered the driving factors for consumers when selecting meat dishes out of the home and how pork could be incorporated in new ways on menus.
Pork is the number one consumed protein around the world, but it's only the primary protein, I should say, on 17% of entree options on U.S. menus. If you look at the demographics in this country, they're changing. There's a lot of multicultural influence that's changing this country, and it presents tremendous opportunities in the food space and specifically for pork.
I'm Julie Harker with Healthy Living on Brownfield.
We depend on our drinking water supply daily, but where does that water come from? Your water provider encourages you to get to know your local water source so together we can protect and preserve it. The investments we make as a community to protect our water source now ensure we have a sustainable drinking water supply for the future. Visit drinktap.org to learn more. This message is brought to you by the American Water Works Association and your local water provider.
It's 4 a.m., Monday, and you're literally sucking baby snot through a tube because she's congested. Man, that's love. And if you love her that much, love her enough to make sure she's buckled in the right car seat. To make sure your child's in the right seat for their age and size, visit nhtsa.gov/the right seat. Show them you love them. Keep them safe. Visit nhtsa.gov/the right seat. Brought to you by the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration and the Ad Council.
Mackey Motors pre-Memorial Day sales event is going on now. We have the largest selection of 2019 Chevy Silverado heavy-duty K2500 and 3500 trucks with up to $14,400 off MSRP. Mackey Motors also has a large selection of 2019 Chevy Silverado K1500 half-ton trucks with up to $12,700 off. Or we have 2019 Chevy Equinoxes with up to $7,300 off. Hurry in and find new roads at Mackey Motors or MackeyMotors.com.
This is Gary Rima, the voice of the UNI Panthers, and you can listen to exciting Panther sports right here on The Voice of
The president pushes back again. Lisa Brady, Fox News. A public feud that escalated yesterday with a scrapped infrastructure meeting continues.
I truly believe that the president has a bag of tricks and the White House has a bag of tricks that they save for certain occasions.
Fox's John Decker is live at the White House.
Hours after House Speaker Nancy Pelosi suggested that President Trump's family conduct an intervention on the commander-in-chief, the president lobbed his own attack on the top Democrat in the House.
Crazy Nancy. I tell you what, I've been watching her, and I have been watching her for a long period of time. She's not the same person. She's lost it.
The president said Pelosi doesn't understand the new trade deal with Mexico and Canada, and he reiterated his position that he won't cooperate on any legislation until Democrats stop their investigations of the president and his family. Lisa?
Thanks, John. Behind the scenes, though, some bipartisan success in the U.S. Senate, just passing a $19 billion disaster relief bill after Republican leaders agreed to drop the president's request to include border-related funding. The president's remarks about Speaker Pelosi came during an event to announce $16 billion in aid for U.S. farmers hurt by the trade dispute with China. also taking questions on Iran. The president says he'll send troops to the Middle East if they're needed, but he doesn't think they will be.
We will soon have the strongest military that we've ever had by far, and nobody's going to mess with us, okay?
Earlier today, the acting defense chief Shanahan disputing reports of possible plans for as many as 10,000 troops.
What we're focused on right now is, do we have the right force protection in the Middle East? And as soon as there's a change, I promise I'll give you an update, but those numbers are not correct.
The president has a Pentagon briefing at this hour. This is Fox News.
Hi, I'm Jay Farner, CEO of Quicken Loans, America's largest mortgage lender. Spring is prime home buying season, so if you're thinking about buying a home, right now is the time to lock a low rate, which can save you money every month on your new mortgage. With our exclusive Rate Shield approval, the low rate you lock today is protected for up to 90 days while you shop for your new home. With a Rate Shield approval, if rates go up, your low rate stays locked. But if rates go down, you get that new, even lower rate. Either way, you win. Talk to us today at 800-QUICKEN or go to rocketmortgage.com to take advantage. Here's another great reason to work with us. For a record 9 years in a row, J.D. Power has ranked Quicken Loans highest in the nation in customer satisfaction for primary mortgage origination. Again, to lock in today's low mortgage interest rate and get the security of our exclusive Rate Shield approval, call us today at 800-QUICKEN or go to rocketmortgage.com.
For J.D. Power award information, visit jdpower.com. Rate Shield approval only valid on certain 30-year fixed-rate loans. Equal housing lender. License in all 50 states. NMLS number 3030.
A risk of more tornadoes and flooding in parts of the central U.S. after the latest outbreak of tornadoes hit Missouri last night, killing at least 3 people in Golden City and leaving a trail of damage in the capital city, Jefferson City, as well. The National Weather Service confirming today that a large and destructive twister moved over Jefferson City just before midnight. President Trump says he would have stopped the release of convicted Taliban fighter John Walker Lindh if he could have.
But we'll be watching him. We'll be watching him closely. What bothers me more than anything else is that here's a man who has not given up his proclamation of terror.
Lindh was released from prison in Indiana earlier today with conditions after serving 17 years of a 20-year sentence. He pleaded guilty to helping the Taliban, but was not charged in the death of a CIA officer killed in a prison uprising in Afghanistan after interrogating Lindh. The Justice Department just announcing charges against the WikiLeaks founder Julian Assange. He's charged with receiving and publishing classified information. An 18-count indictment just announced. They go beyond an initial indictment made public last month that accused him of conspiring with former Army intelligence analyst Chelsea Manning to crack a Defense Department computer. A social media giant dumps billions of fake accounts.
Facebook says it removed over 3 billion fake accounts between October and March, twice as many as the previous 6 months. In a blog post, reps say the increase is due to automated attacks by bad actors attempting to create large volumes of accounts at one time. Facebook continues to upgrade its detection tools to flag bot accounts spreading spam or misleading content and says most were blocked within minutes of creation. With 2.4 billion active monthly users, the company estimates about 5% are fake.
Fox's Kristen Goodwin and Lisa Brady. And this is Fox News.
Your news, your town, your station. KVFD News when it breaks.
With a look at local news from the newsroom, I'm Bob Fisher reporting. Attorney General Tom Miller of Democrats says the agreement he's made with Republican Governor Kim Reynolds means it's pretty unlikely that he'll sign the state of Iowa onto multi-state lawsuits challenging Trump administration policies. Governor Reynolds yesterday used her item veto authority to nix a policy that would have forced Miller to get permission from her, the state's Republican-led Executive Council, or from the legislature's Republican majority to join lawsuits filed in courts outside of Iowa. However, Miller has struck what he calls a good faith agreement that's not set in Iowa law and has promised to seek the governor's consent before joining any multi-state lawsuits over the next 20 months.
My main concern about this was over the institution of the Office of Attorney General and the future of the office and my successors.
Miller also got some backup from current attorneys general, including from Republicans in Idaho and Nebraska, who urged Governor Reynolds to reject the proposal from GOP lawmakers. One of the Republican legislators who sought to put restraints on Miller in state law says he's pleased the governor pursued this compromise. And if Miller intends to challenge Trump administration policies in the future, he'll be doing so under his own name rather than on behalf of the state of Iowa. 5 Eastern Iowa men have been charged with sex trafficking, often in the Johnson County area. OK Henderson with more.
29-year-old Isaiah Patterson is accused of using advertising to sell sex with a minor girl. 25-year-old Arian West is accused of forcing 2 minors to have sex for money. 39-year-old Albert Kelly Price is charged with paying 3 minors to have sex in hotels and other locations. 52-year-old Kendall Stebb has been charged with a variety of sex trafficking, drug, and firearm offenses. And 40-year-old Tommy Tate Collins is charged with sex trafficking a minor and giving the victim marijuana and cocaine. Radio Iowa, I'm OK Henderson.
As the American Red Cross responds to another round of deadly tornadoes overnight, Iowa Senator Chuck Grassley is introducing legislation that aims to make sure that the relief agency is spending its funds appropriately. Grassley chairs the Senate Finance Committee and says his bill would give a congressional watchdog group more complete access to Red Cross records for oversight.
It's a tax-exempt organization. My committee has responsibility over making sure tax exemption is used properly.
He says the bipartisan American Red Cross Transparency Act of 2019 responds to concerns the agency tried to halt a review by the Government Accountability Office and limited the scope of the review.
We feel that there hasn't been enough transparency on the part of this federally chartered organization, and that's pretty important because most nonprofits aren't federally chartered. Very few are.
The American people rely on the Red Cross to respond when tragedy strikes and receives federal tax dollars for some of its disaster responses. Grassley says Congress has a responsibility to make sure the Red Cross answers questions asked on the public's behalf and is operating up to the standards required of it during disasters.
The bottom line is the Red Cross needs to share their books with the federal government when they're investigated. And we want to make sure that the Government Accountability Office has access to the records so the Red Cross can't impede government review.
Grassley says the Red Cross has shown an unwillingness to answer questions in the past, and the legislation strengthens transparency to make the agency more accountable to the public. An author from Central Iowa is releasing a new book that focuses on the successes and stumbles of some of the region's most well-known figures. Aaron Putzi of Ankeny says his nonfiction book, You're Destined for Greatness, is a compilation of lessons learned by those who've excelled in business, sports, academia, finance, retail, and elected office.
It's a book of inspiration and empowerment, stories that have been shared with me over the last few years by 27 notable and influential people, with many with Midwest and Iowa roots.
Now, that list includes former University of Iowa football star Chuck Long and his coach Hayden Fry, Ambassador and former Governor Terry Branstad, Randy Itaker, the chairman and CEO of Hy-Vee. Putzi says his book zeroes in on how our attitudes and the choices we make impact everything we attempt and achieve.
We can all use a little bit more inspiration and aspiration in how we go about living our lives, especially during a time where there just seems to be a constant stream of negative news and negative information. We can all use our battery charge now and then.
Putzi says books sold through his website, PutziInc.com, will benefit the youth organization Junior Achievement, and that is PUTZEINK.com. That's a look at local news for the newsroom. I'm Bob Fisher.
Here's the AM 1400 KVFD weatherology forecast. Partly cloudy skies this afternoon with daytime highs approaching 70. Winds out of the northwest 8 to 15 miles per hour. Scattered thunderstorms likely tonight. Lows dip down to about 58. Overcast skies. Cloudy skies tomorrow. Scattered thunderstorms likely. Highs level off around 77. From the Weatherology Weather Center, I'm meteorologist Jennifer Wojcicki. Currently, it's 66.
When I needed to hire, I had to post my jobs to lots of job boards in hopes of getting a few great candidates. I'd get a bunch of applicants, but most weren't right for my job. It was like trying to find a needle in a haystack. Then I went to ZipRecruiter.com/free and tried ZipRecruiter for free. Hiring is so much easier now. I post my jobs, and with one click, ZipRecruiter's smart matching technology sends them to over 100 top job boards and finds the right candidates for me. So while other companies might deliver a lot of hay, ZipRecruiter finds what I'm looking for. The needle in the haystack.
4 out of 5 employers who post a job in ZipRecruiter get a quality candidate through the site within the first day. ZipRecruiter, the smartest way to hire. And now you can try ZipRecruiter for free. That's right, free. Just go to this exclusive web address, ZipRecruiter.com/free. That's ZipRecruiter.com/free. ZipRecruiter.com/free.
Message and data rates may apply.
Earning your degree from one of the top business schools in the country might sound impossible to fit into your workload. But what if there were a business degree that furthered your career and gave you access to world-renowned faculty, leaders, and mentors, all on your schedule? One that opened doors to some of the most influential CEOs, tech companies, law firms, entrepreneurs, and thought leaders. And what if you could earn that degree in as little as 16 months, 100% online? To find out more, text DRIVE to 79645. That's DRIVE to 79645. Start your online MBA, Information Management, or Business Analytics Master's Program from the W.P. Carey School of Business at Arizona State University today. Learn more about the W.P. Carey Business Graduate Programs online. Text DRIVE to 79645. That's DRIVE to 79645.
Customer assistance, aisle 83.
Big box stores annoying you big time? Get real help at Steel Dealer Days. Right now, save $20 on the tough and dependable MS-170 chainsaw with grass trimmers starting at $129.95. Save on legendary Steel power equipment now during Dealer Days. Visit SteelDealers.com. All prices MSRP. Offer valid through 6/30/2019 at participating dealers while supplies last. Not available in all markets. See dealer for details.
Michael Devine at AM 1400 KVFD.
Listen to this.
Making radio great again.
I bet you don't know Matt Bemrick's middle name. It's wrong. Matt Wrong Bemrick. All right, and he's here, ladies and gentlemen. He's here in studio with us. So if you have a question or comment for the mayor of Fort Dodge, now is your time. I don't know how anybody could complain about a lack of transparency. The mayor's been on this program for 10 years. Have you been mayor 10 years?
Yeah.
Okay.
About 10 years.
Well, he's been on this program the whole time. And all you have to do to ask the mayor a question is call 515-955-1400. Come on there, social media commandos. 515-955-1400. One of the things covered at the city council meeting last Monday that generated a little bit. Well, I generated a little bit of confusion. There's people that just don't understand things. And one of the things, and it took me quite a while to really appreciate this myself and really understand it. And I don't think I have got it completely figured out, all the different ways that TIF can be used. I've talked with Dr. Peter Fisher, who's the father of TIF kind of in the state of Iowa.
Yeah, he'd probably be one of the leading experts, published a lot of papers, like that on.
He
TIF.
has, and he's in favor of TIF.
TIF stands for tax increment financing.
Correct.
We'll start there.
All right, we can start there. And what does that mean? What's the definition of tax increment?
And I'm going to use very simple, generic numbers
All right.
because that way it makes it a little less perplexing. So let's say you have a building or a structure that is sitting empty, and that building's currently valued at $100,000.
Right.
So you're paying taxes on $100,000. Somebody comes along and says, I'd like to acquire that property. It's been sitting there empty, vacant, whatever, for a while. And this is kind of to reflect what's going on with the Sears parcel,
right?
The old Sears. So it's been sitting there for a while. Nobody's using it. It's underutilized. I want to redevelop that property. So they're going to ask the city to use tax increment financing.
Mm-hmm.
That means that they're going to build something different there, renovate, change that property, and increase the value which it is taxed upon. So let's say, for easy math, they increase the value to $200,000. So now the new incremental value, which it is taxed at the rate of tax per units of 1,000, is now $200,000. the difference between what was the original tax value that keeps going into the normal tax coffers. The new value then is taken, and in our case, we do an annual appropriation. They pay the tax just like they pay their original base tax. They pay that in, the county collects it, distributes it to the city, and then the city rebates that tax or appropriates it back to the property owner that has created those improvements, whether it be they tore down the building or they improved the building, remodeled it, or whatever they did. In the case of Sears, they want to use that money to tear the building down. Then take that
This
entire
is the current
site.
owner, right?
Yes.
Blessing Enterprises.
Blessing Enterprises. And I think they're working with a developer is what they're doing. They own the parcel, and a developer has come along and put together this proposal and is working with Blessing and a real estate company.
Mhm.
They then take that new increment and they can either service the debt that they created to pay for tearing it down up front. They can pay themselves back if they use cash on hand. They can, use it for whatever purpose they want to use, but it can only match the amount we agreed to in the development agreement.
Mhm.
So I believe in this case it was $347,000. So after the $347 would be paid to them over either 5, 7, 10 years, depending on how long it was expected to take to pay that back, it's done. And then it goes back into the normal tax system.
Mm-hmm.
And that TIF debt or that TIF would be retired. That's about as simple of a project as there is. Now, there's way more complex projects. Fairway, for instance. Fairway is in a TIF district, but we did not collect any new TIF dollars off it. All the new dollars for Fairway went into the normal tax coffers.
Okay.
But we used existing TIF, so other properties that were already in TIF that had an increment being paid on them that was already servicing some other debt or some appropriation back. We used those dollars because debt was being retired or replaced. And then we used those to redevelop the Fairway site. Basically creating new tax base without taking that new area and also collecting TIF on it.
Okay. Stay on task with me now.
I'm trying.
Well, you're doing a fine job. The confusion seemed to be about the cost of demolition. Some people believed, as you know, that the city was eating the $397,000 cost of demolition of the old Sears building.
No, that's not coming from normal tax dollars. It's not coming from any other program or any other thing in the city. If they don't build anything to replace the original building, they've created no new increment. They get nothing.
Mm-hmm.
So if they tore it down and didn't build anything, they'd be out. They would get nothing because we're not obligated to pay them anything other than the new increment they create.
Okay.
In that particular circumstance.
So the city's making money on this.
Well, eventually they would hopefully create new tax value. Do you realize that the entire mall area, if I just looked this up the other day, the entire mall area, and I'm not talking about J-Mars or Great Western Bank or Applebee's. I'm talking the mall proper. That generates $173,000 in city taxes.
Does it really?
That's all it generates.
Wow.
If you think about replacing dilapidated buildings, old structures out there with new, good, well-designed, better purposed facilities that are, one, going to create more sales tax, hopefully, and two, create higher tax values, higher values of property that can be taxed, you could increase the money going to the city by quite a bit. That building was bought in I believe I looked, and it was like 1991 for $13.9 million. The mall. It just sold recently for like $4. I mean, that tells you where malls are
I shouldn't
going.
laugh. God,
It tells you what the value of a mall is.
Oh,
now.
that's too bad, isn't it? Jeez, that's just awful. We talked about Blessing wanting their building demolished. Are they telling us that they have a new project in mind, a new development in mind?
They do. They have 1.5 acres of the old Sears property that they have. They're saying they have somebody ready to develop if if we can come to an agreement. So what the council did the other night is
now, let me make sure of what you're saying. If the city and Blessing can come to an agreement on the demolition of the Sears store, then Blessing is telling us or alluding to that they may have a developer willing to commit to a project.
That's why they asked for a letter of intent or resolution of intent. So what we approved Monday was a resolution of intent, not a development agreement. A development agreement would be, we know this is what they're going to build. This is what the site plan is. This is how much their tenant space would be. And if they got 1, 2, or 3 spaces, we may not know exactly who the retailer will be, but we would know that they're going to build this many square feet. This is what their development footprint looks like. And this is how it fits into an overall plan to redevelop not just that 1.5 acre, but the full Sears property.
Okay. All right. It would be great to see something new out there.
It'd be great to see anything good happening out in the mall area. And I mean, retail's suffering. It's
a whole new world.
It is a very strange malls. You know, I wish we could say, well, you know, Fort Dodge is broken because of X and all we got to do is fix that and everything will work better. This is a huge problem all across the country. Malls are just dying.
Oh, they are.
They're being vacated. They're being left. Retailers are closing daily.
Yonkers is gone. Yonkers is gone.
Almost every week you can, if you're an avid watcher of the news or you read a lot of online stuff like I do, there's always something closing. It's retail closing all the time. I mean, Dress Barn, I think, was the latest one.
600 and some stores they closed.
Yeah, I mean, and even service providing, like wholesalers are closing. So Crescent Electric, we have a Crescent Electric here in Fort Dodge. It's right over by Napa. They just closed like 8 stores in Iowa, and that's a wholesaler closing stores.
Wow. Did they close ours?
No, ours is still here. They closed Sioux City, Storm Lake, Marshalltown, and there were some others. I'm not sure. Those were the ones that come right off the top of my head. But so, I mean, the retail and the buying of goods for construction, even all that stuff's changing. Everything's changing to, I want to order stuff online. I want to pick it up or I want it delivered to me. I'm not necessarily going to behave in a traditional retail fashion where you drove to a place, you got out, you went in and you did your shopping. People are just behaving differently, which means we have to modify what we're doing and what we're trying to provide to still stay involved in some kind of retail market. There's still certain things that we got to try to provide.
You know, poor Julie, her life was about going to the malls and now they're closing. Sure. There's a lot of women who are totally freaked. I'm a little freaked about the whole thing. I was out there today looking at Yonkers and I thought, God, what a nice looking building that is. But the trees are now unkempt and the grass isn't mowed as it once was. It's a different time, and I don't know where we're going, but we'll probably come out all right on the other end. AM 1400, KVFD, you're on the air with the mayor.
Well, hey, while you guys are talking about new businesses coming in, what's going in the old Mid-America building on South 22nd?
Fort Dodge Plum Supply.
Okay. So are they taking that whole thing, or are they selling part of it off? Or
they bought all the fenced in, like the old yard in the back, and then that big brick building. They bought all of that.
Oh, alrighty then. Well, thank you.
Yeah, no problem.
Thank you, sir. Yeah, great question. AM 1400, KVFD, the voice, Fort Dodge, 955-1400 if you have a question or comment for the mayor. I'm going to come back to the mall and what's going on out there, but we do need to talk about the Warden Plaza. I was down First Avenue South, of course, today and slowed to look at what's happening there. Big chunks are falling off the Warden.
A piece of limestone on the parapet wall, which the parapet wall is the kind of short wall that's on the top of the roof that is kind of that leading edge protection. There's limestone like pieces up there, and one of them literally blew off and fell to the ground and broke. Structurally, the building's not going anywhere. That's more of a facade issue than it is the structure itself. I mean, the facade is, of course, part of the structure, but it's the decorative part of the structure, not the bones of it.
Okay.
the owner, KDG, which is the developer we've been working with, hired the same company the city's actually using to do our tuck pointing on City Hall. They hired them. They're paying the bill to make the repair and make that parapet wall safe there on First Avenue South.
Who are we hiring to do that?
The city didn't hire them. The KDG
hired who?
It's a company that's doing the tuck pointing on City
name
Hall. And I don't know. It's some Mason company.
Okay.
I don't know.
All right. I was screwing around with my phone. Sorry.
Yeah, I can't think of it off the top of my head.
Well, it's
so
not that.
that company's been across the street working on our building. So they already have a lot of stuff right there. They needed to rent a very large lift, of course, to get up that high on the building. And the lifts they had at City Hall were too small. So they contacted Mid-Country Machinery. Mid-Country got them a big lift. They couldn't do it yesterday because the winds, of course, yesterday were very high. So today they're up there making those repairs, and that repair and that work is all being paid for by KDG, not by the city. Because I know social media was alluding that somehow the taxpayers were paying for that, and no, they're not.
Well, I've spent some time as a troll myself, but I'll have to say there's a lot of paranoia out there for some reason, or maybe just people want to be nasty. I don't know. John Daniel, I was down in Daniel Pharmacy the other day. He's doing some tuck pointing on the front of the store.
There's quite a few people downtown that have been doing facade work and brickwork. If you go down there across from Shiny Top, that Edward Jones that just moved in that corner lot, they tuck pointed that entire building. I think you got Lily Grace, and then there's, I think, a church in the middle, and then there's some apartments above. They tuck pointed, I think, that entire building.
I see the weightlifting places out where which pharmacy? Well, Weevil Pharmacy. When I got to town, that's what it was. I see that's open in Bacon again. I think Brooke Bickford owns that building. I think.
Yeah, I think you might be right.
All right. Matt Bemrick is our guest. If you have a question or comment for the mayor, it's 515-955-1400. We'll be back.
Michael Devine at AM 1400.
In the name of justice and the American way of life.
With 60 rounds of freedom.
That's right. We have 60 rounds of freedom at all times. News, weather, the obituaries, and more Matt Bemrick coming up. AM 1400 KVFD.
Victory Motors in Fort Dodge is looking for an automotive tech to join their fast-paced work environment. Ideal applicants would have an excellent work ethic, be safety conscious, and have their own tools. An automotive tech degree or a 2 ASE certifications minimum and at least 4 years on the job experience is required. Competitive hourly pay with 2 weeks paid vacation to start. Stop working on flag hours and start taking home a consistent paycheck every week. Apply in person at Victory Motors on 169 South Fort Dodge. Victory Motors is an equal opportunity employer.
When it comes to being your best, who's in your healthcare support circle? Family? Friends? Coaches? What if there was a way to strengthen that circle of care? Mercy One now has a 20,000-person support team all across Iowa, with more locations and more highly rated specialty services than any health network in the region. Now that you can add all this care to your circle, why wouldn't you? Mercy One, your best life, our one purpose.
When severe weather threatens, keep it here for the Severe Weather Advisor. Brought to you by Creative Signs and Graphics Fort Dodge. For signs, decals, vehicle graphics, magnets, logos, customized documents, and more. If your business needs it, Creative Signs and Graphics can make it. And a stitch above the rest embroidery, Fort Dodge. Step out in style with quality brands, timely turnaround, and professional service. A stitch above the rest. Embroidery professionals worth finding. Remember, when severe weather threatens, stay with your friends on KVFD.
Your news, your town, your station. KVFD News when it breaks.
The look at local news from the newsroom. I'm Bob Fisher reporting. Attorney General Tom Miller of Democrats says the agreement he's made with Republican Governor Kim Reynolds means it's pretty unlikely that he'll sign the state of Iowa onto multi-state lawsuits challenging Trump administration policies. Governor Reynolds yesterday used her item veto authority to nix a policy that would have forced Miller to get permission from her, the state's Republican-led executive council, or from the legislature's Republican majority to join lawsuits filed in courts outside of Iowa. However, Miller has struck what he calls a good faith agreement that's not set in Iowa law, and has promised to seek the governor's consent before joining any multi-state lawsuits over the next 20 months.
My main concern about this was over the institution of the Office of Attorney General and the future of the office and my successors.
Miller also got some backup from current attorneys general, including from Republicans in Idaho and Nebraska, who urged Governor Reynolds to reject the proposal from GOP lawmakers. One of the Republican legislators who sought to put restraints on Miller in state law says he's pleased the governor pursued this compromise. And if Miller intends to challenge Trump administration policies in the future, he'll be doing so under his own name rather than on behalf of the state of Iowa. 5 Eastern Iowa men have been charged with sex trafficking, often in the Johnson County area. OK Henderson with more.
29-year-old Isaiah Patterson is accused of using advertising to sell sex with a minor girl. 25-year-old Arian West is accused of forcing 2 minors to have sex for money. 39-year-old Albert Kelly Price is charged with paying 3 minors to have sex in hotels and other locations. 52-year-old Kendall Stebb has been charged with a variety of sex trafficking, drug, and firearm offenses. And 40-year-old Tommy Tate Collins is charged with sex trafficking a minor and giving the victim marijuana and cocaine. Radio Iowa, I'm OK Henderson.
As the American Red Cross responds to another round of deadly tornadoes overnight, Iowa Senator Chuck Grassley is introducing legislation that aims to make sure that the relief agency is spending its funds appropriately. Grassley chairs the Senate Finance Committee and says his bill would give a congressional watchdog group more complete access to Red Cross records for oversight.
It's a tax-exempt organization. My committee has responsibility over making sure tax exemption is used properly.
He says the bipartisan American Red Cross Transparency Act of 2019 responds to concerns the agency tried to halt a review by the Government Accountability Office and limited the scope of the review.
We feel that there hasn't been enough transparency on the part of this federally chartered organization, and that's pretty important because most nonprofits aren't federally chartered. Very few are.
The American people rely on the Red Cross to respond when tragedy strikes and to receive federal tax dollars for some of its disaster responses. Grassley says Congress has a responsibility to make sure the Red Cross answers questions asked on the public's behalf and is operating up to the standards required of it during disasters.
The bottom line is the Red Cross needs to share their books with the federal government when they're investigated. And we want to make sure that the Government Accountability Office has access to the records so the Red Cross can't impede government review.
Grassley says the Red Cross has shown an unwillingness to answer questions in the past, and the legislation strengthens transparency to make the agency more accountable to the public. An author from Central Iowa is releasing a new book that focuses on the successes and stumbles of some of the region's most well-known figures. Aaron Putzi of Ankeny says his nonfiction book, You're Destined for Greatness, is a compilation of lessons learned by those who've excelled in business, sports, academia, finance, retail, and elected office.
It's a book of inspiration and empowerment, stories that have been shared with me over the last few years by 27 notable and influential people, with many with Midwest and Iowa roots.
Now, that list includes former University of Iowa football star Chuck Long and his coach Hayden Fry, Ambassador and former Governor Terry Branstad, and Randy Itaker, the chairman and CEO of Hy-Vee. Putzi says his book zeroes in on how our attitudes and the choices we make impact everything we attempt and achieve.
We can all use a little bit more inspiration and aspiration in how we go about living our lives, especially during a time where there just seems to be a constant stream of negative news and negative information. We can all use our battery charge now and then.
Putzi says books sold through his website, PutziInc.com, will benefit the youth organization Junior Achievement, and that is PUTZEINK.com. That's a look at local news for the newsroom. I'm Bob Fisher.
A steady stream of negative information. Who's he talking about? AM 1400 KVFD, the voice of Fort Dodge. First of all, in the weather, 66 degrees right now. The rest of the afternoon should be pretty decent. There's going to be some rain overnight. It seems like it never ends. There'll be a thunderstorm early tomorrow morning before 8 a.m. Mostly cloudy with a high of 77. Tomorrow on Saturday, again, early rain, sunny with a high of 80. Sunday, a chance of rain, mostly sunny with a high of 77. Memorial Day, showers and thunderstorms, cloudy with a high of 75. And on Tuesday, there'll be a chance of a thunderstorm, mostly cloudy with a high of 70. Wednesday, again, a slight chance of rain, sunny with a high of 68 degrees. Right now, 66 degrees at AM 1400. KVFT voice for Dodge. Those of you who served in the military in Asia, does this look like the monsoon season we're having here where the rain never stops? Bruce's Funeral Home at 923 First Avenue South in Fort Dodge. You may contact the historic Bruce's Funeral Home by calling 515-576-5117 or online at www.brucesfuneralhome.com. I'm sorry to report the death of Nancy Stanek at the age of 87, one of the nicest ladies I ever met. Nancy F. Stanek passed away yesterday at the Simpson Healthcare Center. Arrangements are pending for Nancy Stanek. Michael Parrish has died at the age of 80. Mr. Parrish passed away yesterday at the Marion home. There will be a celebration of the life of Michael Parrish held at a later date. Obituaries this hour brought to you by the historic Bruce's Funeral Home at 923 First Avenue South in Fort Dodge. You may contact the historic Bruce's Funeral Home by calling 515-576-5117 or online at www.brucesfuneralhome.com. 4:36 at AM 1400.
From the Fox Business Network, on Wall Street, the major averages closing in the red after the latest flare-up in U.S.-China trade tensions curbed investors' expectations of a near-term resolution between the world's two biggest economies. Among the laggards today, tech, industrials, and financials, while real estate and utilities were among the gainers. The Dow falling 286 points, the Nasdaq down 123, S&P 500 down 34. But some encouraging news about the job market. The number of Americans filing applications for unemployment claims falling last week for the third consecutive week, pointing to a historically tight labor market. Claims falling 1,000 to 211,000, according to the Labor Department. And Taco Bell is planning a huge expansion in India and making the country its biggest international market. The fast food chain announcing plans to open 600 restaurants in the country over the next 10 years, creating 20,000 new jobs. With the Fox Business Report, I'm Rybarsky.
You don't want to mess with the IRS. They have the power to garnish your paycheck, levy your bank account, and even take your home or business. That's all true. But thankfully, they're offering a way out. The Fresh Start Initiative. If you qualify, you could save thousands. The experts at Optima Tax Relief will fight to get you the best possible tax settlement, and they have an A+ rating with the BBB. Call Optima for your free consultation.
Call 800-682-9964. 800-682-9964.
Optima Tax Relief.
Hi, I'm Jamie Brundage, owner of Historic Bruce Funeral Home. When you're planning the memorialization of your loved one, you're telling their story and sharing special memories with your family and friends. At Historic Bruce Funeral Home, we're proud to help you celebrate the life of your loved one, and we're here to guide you with your selections as we help you and your family say goodbye in a way that's right for you. Our staff is committed to compassionate care and attention to detail. Historic Bruce Funeral Home, Fort Dodge. Online at brucesfuneralhome.com.
Today, business happens here, and virtually anywhere. Because today, innovative companies are reinventing the way business happens, and they need people who can keep up. With the expertise and technology to get packages to over 150 million delivery points. So, who can help you deliver the future of commerce? The United States Postal Service. See why we deliver more e-commerce packages to homes than anyone at USPS.com/future.
Thrifty White Community Health Corner. May is High Blood Pressure Education Month. Having high blood pressure increases your risk for a heart attack, stroke, or kidney disease. Taking steps toward a healthier lifestyle can reduce your risk and blood pressure. Control or lower your blood pressure by adding to or increasing your physical activity. Aim for 2.5 hours a week. That's only 30 minutes a day. Choose activities that get your heart pumping and get you to break a sweat. Visit your local Thrifty White pharmacist to learn more.
Hi, I'm Tommy. I'm a farmer, a wife, a mom, a leader in my community, and I live with HIV. My life is just like yours. I get up every day hoping for the best day possible out in field. I feed my soul with hard work and am dedicated to making the most out of every day. I wasn't always so optimistic, but once I found out that I'm just one of over 3,000 Iowans living with HIV, I knew I wasn't alone. I reached out to the Iowa Department of Public Health and found out I qualified for medication and medical care, financial help, transportation, housing, and counseling through Ryan White funding. That was a huge relief to me and my family. I've taken control of my diagnosis and take care of myself so I can live my best life. I'm living with HIV, not dying from it. Why wait? Reach out for testing and care services at StopHIVIowa.org.
The great thing about facts, they're proven. Like the fact that crude oil contains impurities.
or that base oil made from natural gas is 99.5% free of impurities. And the fact that Pennzoil is the first synthetic motor oil made from natural gas, not crude oil. It gives you unbeatable engine protection. The proof is in the Pennzoil. Based on Sequence 4A wear test using SAE 5W30. Get a $100 travel reward credit with a full synthetic oil change through October 31st, 2019. Terms apply. Visit pennzoil.com/travel on.
Victory Motors in Fort Dodge is looking for an automotive tech to join their fast-paced work environment. Ideal applicants would have an excellent work ethic, be safety conscious, and have their own tools. An automotive tech degree or a 2 ASE certifications minimum and at least 4 years on-the-job experience is required. Competitive hourly pay with 2 weeks paid vacation to start. Stop working on flag hours and start taking home a consistent paycheck every week. Apply in person at Victory Motors on 169 South Fort Dodge. Victory Motors is an equal opportunity employer.
Michael Devine at AM 1400 KVFD.
Listen to this.
Making radio great again.
All right, here we go. AM 1400 KVFD, the voice of Fort Dodge. I'm Michael Devine. With me now is the mayor of Fort Dodge, Matt Bemrick. And if you have a question or a comment or the mayor of Fort Dodge, it's 515-955-1400. Matt's not really here to talk to me. We can do that anytime. So if you have a question, and there's always questions on social media. Funny thing about social media, it's hard to respond on social media. However, even in this forum where you have to talk with somebody, even though you're not in the same room, it gets a little more difficult to be a troll. So 515-955-1400. If you have a legitimate question, or even if you have a crazy question, 515-955-1400. Maybe you don't know your question is crazy. You know, who knows?
Okay.
All right, there we go. So we talked a little bit about the Warden Plaza. Is the city at a standstill as far as what we can do with the Warden Plaza?
No, there's a bunch of things going on in the background right now. There's a grant that the city's applied for to tear down the Wakanza Annex. That's the white brick portion.
Yeah.
The developer KDG is working with architects and others on the next phase of the application process with the historic tax credits. There is an $800,000 grant we've already received to do some remediation of things like lead paint, asbestos, and others.
That's in the warden itself.
That's in the warden itself.
I don't like to interrupt you, but I'm going to do it here. When you say we are trying to get a grant to tear down the warden annex, now is that something we are going to do with KDG, or is that just something the city's going to do?
The city owns the Wakanza Annex, the white brick.
The city does. Okay.
We retain that portion of the building. The red portion, or what's formerly known as the warden, is owned by KDG with an agreement to develop it with the city.
The red portion?
Yeah, the red brick.
Oh, I see what you're saying.
Portion
Okay. All right.
is the warden. The white brick portion is what's considered or called the Wakanza Annex. That's what we've applied for a grant for to tear it down.
Okay. All right.
That building.
And how's that coming? That would be a good
That
start.
grant will be notified sometime in June.
Okay.
That was part of our DC lobbying trip that we were.
Oh, is that
working on
right?
That grant. Yeah.
Okay. And it looks like that's going to happen.
We're very hopeful that we'll get that grant.
We don't know yet.
Well, they never will tell you. They won't tell you you're getting a grant. They can't. But the indications were very positive that we could get that grant.
Our
That
congressman
application was good.
Our Congressman Steve King, he's having a little trouble right now.
Yeah, he has been for a while.
Yeah, he has been for a while. No committee assignments. Is this something he can get done? I wonder.
Probably.
Or did
I
we
mean,
go
he
to-
sent a letter of support, as well as Senators Ernst and Grassley. They both sent letters of support also. Other than that, I mean, the grant system, the elected folks out there, they fund the departments, and then the departments working under the executive branch develop the systems on which to grant those dollars. So they can influence them by making a phone call or sending a letter, but that's about the extent of it.
Okay.
It's not
That's
like
interesting,
if
really.
you think back to the old days, back in like when Latham, Congressman Latham was here, you used to have earmarks. In Fort Dodge was very lucky to get some earmarks. Senator Harkin was very critical in getting earmarks to revitalize the Lincoln, or part of Lincoln neighborhood and the Parkview neighborhood behind the old Fairway there. Most of those came from earmarks, because in the competitive grant system, towns our size in rural America were just getting completely left out.
Yeah.
And that still happens.
Yeah. Anyway, if you have a question or comment for Mayor Matt Bemrick, 515-955-14.
He doesn't want to talk to me today, folks. Just help him out.
Well, actually, and I don't want this to sound funny, I just as soon not talk when the mayor's on. You know, it's better.
But once you call in, he'll make sure that he ad-libs.
Well, yeah, that's right.
In case you aren't correct.
I'm going to have to butt in.
Or I'm not.
It's in my nature. It just is. But really, the whole idea when I have a councilman or the mayor on or anybody is that you interact with Mayor Bemrick. There always seems to be questions.
We get some good questions too.
Yeah, you do. That's the whole idea behind these. When I took this radio show, I thought, oh, good, I can have the mayor and council people on, and we'll have this Voice of Fort Dodge thing going on. I even talked about it with the managers at the time. We had to live up to our name, Voice of Fort Dodge.
Sure.
We can be a real community resource. Well, it turned out to be more about me than anything else, but it would be great if we had
so it's basically just Minky and I on here now, right?
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, Dave Flattery stops by every now and then.
Sometimes on Fridays, right? He'll come in with
Dave will come in every now and then
with Nevin, those guys sometimes.
Well, yeah, he will.
And you get Kreinbrink and Ann Myers and Sexton comes in here. So I mean, you get those guys in here too.
And I have
you've had
Chief
King in here.
Oh, I'm proud of what
you've had. A lot of good guests.
I'm proud of what we've done here. I mean, we have the biggest addition has been David Furick, frankly.
Yeah, he's fantastic, man. That guy has a lot of information. I mean, he's living in the trench of trying to run this community every single day.
Well, that's why I wasn't too upset about losing the council people, the couple that were mad at me for God knows what. But Furick came along and he didn't talk about fiat currency once. He talked about the nuts and bolts of city management, and he was once he got.
You're not going to get a lot of opinion conversation out of David. You're going to
city manager who wants it.
Yeah, his opinion is important, but at the same time, David's always been real good at here's the facts of the matter. You elected people. Tell me which way you want to go.
Yeah, and he got a little comfortable on the mic, and he got a little more comfortable with me, and he's really got a great segment.
You get Porter in here too, don't you?
I have Chief Porter in here. Yeah, every Tuesday, and then David Furick is on at 4:00 on Tuesday.
Yeah.
So I'm fine with where we are and what we've done.
I catch different people on here over time. Just depends where I'm running around to, and in my vehicle listening. Sometimes I listen in the office. Depends what I'm doing.
Yeah.
I end up on the dang phone all the time.
I think your dad listens out of Bemrick.
My dad does listen.
Yeah.
He's got a little tiny AM radio that sits on his desk. He turns on about 2:00.
Old school, huh?
Real quietly playing in the background.
All right. Can we expect anything else as far as progress on the Warden Plaza? Menke comes in and we both express our frustration, and
It is very frustrating. It's been it's a project that has never been attempted in our community to do something the size of the Warden. And now what we're trying to just kind of kickstart with the Sears property, and then hopefully that will dovetail into the mall proper, is redeveloping that area also. And that's going to be a project the size of we've never undertaken before in the retail spectrum. So, we've got two really big, I guess you'd call them messes in our community. One being a dilapidated Warden structure that needs to be either repurposed or figure out what we're going to do with it. And two would be that mall area. I mean, it's got to evolve into something different. And to do that, it's going to take we're gonna try things. Some things might work great. The other things may not work out. I mean, Hutton was an example of we tried something and it didn't work out. Now we're back to the table trying to do something with Blessings on what they want to do. But we also want to make sure that it fits a broader picture. We don't want to just start plunking things down here and there and all of a sudden surround this giant structure of the mall with a whole bunch of little junky strip malls either. We want to make sure that it's comprehensive. It makes sense.
Explain that a little bit.
Well, I mean, so you
You're-
got these big oceans of asphalt and concrete
Right,
parking.
that's right.
So
Do you want to keep it concentrated there?
the cheap thing to do would be to just say, well, we don't need all this parking anymore. Let's just build a bunch of stuff in the parking lots and just reduce the parking lot sizes down to whatever we think we might possibly need for this thing or that thing.
Wouldn't that make
and
some
all of a
kind
sudden
sense? We'd get property taxes from the business then?
well, then you're just going to have this giant eyesore stuck in the middle of it all.
I see.
You gotta if we're gonna redevelop that, we gotta do something or work with the owners, and you gotta have willing people to work with. We need to work with the owners to come up with a plan of how would we attack this.
Mhm.
What would we do to do you start with some corner outlots and try to develop those? Do you tear down part of the structure? Do you tear down the whole thing? Do you leave the Yonkers wing? What do you do? And to figure that out, I mean, it's going to take due diligence by the city, by the developer themselves, and it's going to take a public-private partnership to make that happen.
You know, they
at least if you want it to be worthwhile, we could do the opposite, like I said, and just plunk stuff down in the concrete ocean that's out there and hope that things work out. But I've never seen things work where you didn't have a decent plan.
I understand.
And right now, there is not a very comprehensive plan. It's kind of we're reacting to this thing with blessing in the immediate instance, but in the agreement, I asked our bond counsel and city staff to add some language in there that requires that this meet a comprehensive plan, so that in order to get TIF, in order to get that tax increment that would be generated from new development, it's got to meet a larger purpose. It can't just be we're going to plunk something down in the ground here and just that's it. That's what we're doing.
Would it make sense to downsize the mall?
Probably.
I mean,
yeah, but
you mentioned Yonkers is a big space.
To answer
over
that
there.
question correctly, you got to put in some effort and do some research. You need to talk to market analysts. You need
I agree with
market experts. And that's part of, if you think back to where the council engaged the retail coach a few months ago, and we've had those retail people out doing surveying and all kinds of market studies and what are people still buying here in Fort Dodge? Where are people shopping outside of Fort Dodge? We're collecting a lot of that data, and we're going to try to figure out if we put this particular retailer here, and where would we put them, and where's the best and highest use of that retailer? Could we get people to quit traveling somewhere else and spend that dollar here?
You know, there's all kinds of things happening with malls. You know, several years ago, Walgreens used to be out there. It was great location, I thought. Well, Walgreens decided it was better to build their own location.
Sure.
And that's happening more and more. The retailers are thinking to themselves, why are we spending a lot of money on mall space when we can buy property
and develop it themselves? I could see the, great big area out there being a mixed use area. You got some retail, you got some service industries. You could even have medical, you could have a gym space, you could have, you might get a Planet Fitness or a Snap Fitness or different people that you got all kinds of different things that could happen out there. You could have some mixed use with housing in it, apartments, you could do a lot of different things, but to do it and do it correctly, I really think we got to follow a plan. If you don't follow some sort of plan, you're going to get half the result you want if you're lucky.
The Kennedy Mall in Dubuque, not surprisingly, lost their Sears store, and they turned it into a rec center. And it's a big, beautiful rec center, really.
Yep. There's lots of different people that are trying to do different things with what were malls. Event space, all kinds of stuff.
Okay. Well, has anybody got a final call here? We're getting ready to wrap it up with the mayor. So 515-955-1400, 515-955-1400. You do anything for Memorial Day or what?
No, Michelle works part of the weekend.
She does?
Yep. She works tomorrow and Saturday,
Well,
and
still
she's off
good.
Sunday, Monday. So I think I'm going to smoke ribs.
All right.
On Sunday and just do some cooking. I try to get some yard work done if the weather cooperates.
Well, that sounds like
and I'm sure I'll find a frosty cold
You're going to find a
frosty cool Bud Light somewhere involved in that weekend. Yeah.
Well,
might try to find Jim's baseball. My buddy Jim, he's always losing his baseball.
He loses his baseball. How does he lose his baseball?
It's an inside joke.
It's an inside joke. All right. Thank you, Matt.
This
is AM 1400 KVFD.
Message and data rates may apply. Earning your degree from one of the top business schools in the country might sound impossible to fit into your workload. But what if there were a business degree that furthered your career and gave you access to world-renowned faculty, leaders, and mentors, all on your schedule? One that opened doors to some of the most influential CEOs, tech companies, law firms, entrepreneurs, and thought leaders. And what if you could earn that degree in as little as 16 months, 100% online? To find out more, text DRIVE to 79645. That's DRIVE to 79645. Start your online MBA, information management, or business analytics master's program from the W.P. Carey School of Business at Arizona State University today. Learn more about the W.P. Carey Business Graduate Programs online. Text DRIVE to 79645. That's DRIVE to 79645.
The choice of a lawyer is an important decision and should not be based solely on advertising. Sponsored by Case Legal Media.
Attention. This is an important message for anyone that has been diagnosed with cancer after being exposed to Roundup or other weed killers. The Internal Agency for Research on Cancer warned that overexposure to Roundup and other weed killers may increase the risk of developing non-Hodgkin's lymphoma. Monsanto, the manufacturer of Roundup, may have known that Roundup and other weed killers were likely linked to organ damage and cancer. This information was hidden from the public as proprietary trade secret since 1981, and Monsanto may have failed to warn of the potential risk of cancer. If you or a loved one has been diagnosed with cancer after being exposed to Roundup or other weed killers, you may be entitled to significant compensation.
Call us now at 800-715-3913. Our network of attorneys are ready to fight for you. You'll pay nothing unless there's a recovery in your favor. Call now for a free consultation at 800-715-3913. You must protect your legal rights. Call 800-715-3913. Again, 800